currently live. There are now people who can hear our voices.
Coming
Hello.
live to you from the GNR studios here in Washington, D.C. or something. Hi, everyone. We thought we were done with the Acolyte. We thought, oh, hello.
Sorry,
all
go
good?
ahead. Continue. Continue.
We thought we were all done with the Acolyte. But unfortunately, there's always more to talk about, it seems. And a lot of the discourse that we got, well, I say we, that Sheev got on his video reviewing the series was interesting. So we thought we'd do one of our little discussion streams and hear out everyone in good faith and polite, in the spirit of politeness, and see if we can come to some kind of agreement.
Yeah, I guess I should say that I should have expected some kind of response to because obviously I opened my Acolyte video with like me saying the Charlie Barnett controversy was silly and that there was a lot of toxic discourse surrounding the show coming from both sides, like as early as before the show even came out. And kind of like with the inhibitor chips thing, I guess I should have expected that to warrant some kind of backlash. But I figured most people would be like, nope, she was right. And that's it. But that's not what happened. So I guess we got to talk to some people about it, see what they have to say. I could be wrong. I know I sound smug right now. That's just my voice. I'm willing to concede that I might just be wrong about this, about my stance. So I want to open the floor to you guys.
Don't worry, with me and in the call, there's no danger that you'll look smug. Like my accent will take that.
And this is about more than just the Charlie Barnett thing, right? So like if you had any disagreements with what I said in my sort of opening disclaimer in terms of how the fan base reacted to the show, by all means, you can bring that up. But that is the main sort of like that and like the Ki-Adi-Mundi birth year and I guess Darth Plagueis birth year disagreement that a lot of people had are probably the two main topics we're going to be touching on today.
Yeah. As with most of our discussion streams, we're going to set like a loose. Did we say 20 or 30 minutes?
I think 20 should be fine. Yeah.
All right, we'll set a loose 20-minute mark. So, if we feel like the conversation after 20 minutes is sort of concluded, we'll ask you to politely like back out and let someone else have their turn. We'd also politely ask people not to come on if they're just going to repeat other people's points. Like if you do that, we will just ask you politely to leave again to give other people their chance because there will be other people who would like to speak. So don't do that unless you feel like you can unless you feel like someone made their argument really badly and you want to do a better job of it or want to add to it. Otherwise, try and bring something new to the discussions.
Yeah. And of course, this just goes without saying, but like be polite, be cordial, be civil. We're not trying to shit sling. We don't want this isn't even really a debate as much as it is like, tell us why you disagree with what we said. And we'll see if we can come to some kind of agreement or, at the very least, agree to disagree.
Yeah. It's a debate only in the most like technical sense of the word. What it really is a discussion stream.
Yeah. So come on so that we can slam you for being wrong and stupid.
Come on so that we can own you with facts and logic.
Yeah. Also, I have pinned the link to the StreamYard. So if you have a disagreement, you can just click that at the top of the chat there, and it'll bring you into our little room here, and you'll be able to talk to us. Let's see. Food is still not here. Damn. All right. Yeah. Do we have anything else to sort of preamble, or should we begin?
I guess should we make a comment about sound quality? Like if people think their sound quality is going to be very difficult for other people to understand, maybe don't come on. I mean, that's rude. I don't want to sound rude, but just like we've had a few occasions in the past where someone's come on with like a basically incomprehensible microphone, and you and I have just sat there like trying to pass what they're saying in the best possible faith that we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been difficult at times to make out what people are saying. So, yeah. If you don't think you have like the best mic, and again, I don't want to be rude, but like if you have kind of a really thick accent, it might be hard for us to understand you. And I mean, by all means, come on. It might just be a little difficult for us to communicate properly and that sort of thing.
Yeah, if you've got a strong accent, like make sure you have good sound quality so that we can actually try and pass what you're saying. Because like that's that combo is the killer, right? Bad sound quality and a thick accent is really difficult to get a discussion going with. But that's just, we're not trying to push anyone out of the call. Like if you think you can come on and you think you're going to sound okay, please come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all. You've got some super chats if you want to do those before we start.
Yeah, I did get a couple super chats. One from the Funny Hatter for $2. Can I still be angry at Lucasfilm? Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
In fact, I will join you. I will raise my pitchforks and my torches, and we will rally a mob together.
I will fetch my hammer.
Indeed. And then Southpaw for $5 said, "Why do we give a shit about this?"
Because Spider-Man isn't coming out yet.
Ah, true. But Twisters is out, as Andrew very handily pointed out.
True. Twister's Agenda.
Twister's Agenda, indeed. I still haven't watched it, but I'm sure it's great.
It is a good film. Anyway, let's go on with it.
Yeah. So without further ado, we have Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hi.
Welcome on.
Hello.
Hello. So should we just kind of like? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
if I don't sound great.
No, you sound fine. Just dive right in.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. This is kind of a weirdly specific thing that I disagreed with, but I thought it was kind of funny, so I decided to come on. I remember you took an issue with the two having different different hairstyles, because like that would be coincidental.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that was dumb.
All right.
Talk about that.
Why do you think it was dumb?
Well, because I don't. Well, the thing is that when we talk about why plot holes are important, we're usually talking about like, how much do they actually affect the story. I think with that one, it's like, well, like the way that you put it in your video, it's like, well, they wouldn't have found her without the different hairstyles. Like if they had different hairstyles, they wouldn't have ever found her.
Yeah.
But
Well, so
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if
the overall broad point Sheev was making in his video was just like the fact that they share the same hairstyle, or very nearly the same hairstyle. I think May's is slightly longer in the beginning, but it's the same style. That directly facilitates several major plot points without which the entire plot wouldn't have happened, including Osha arguably being drawn into the plot in the first place at all. Although, like, that's also paired off with another contrivance to make sure that she can be roped in. So that's a double whammy.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm not really sure what you mean. Like, Osha would never be brought into it. Like,
okay, so
wouldn't the bartender recognize her? No matter what her hairstyle was.
Well, so this is the thing.
Well, okay, so here's kind of the sequence of events, right? Like, so May attacks and kills Indara, and she leaves the bartender alive to witness. And like, he does see her face, but like, unless he gave a detailed enough description of her face that like whatever sketch artist was there, like perfectly drew May's face and it looked just like Osha's. The Jedi took a look at that and were like, that looks exactly like Osha's face. Like, unless that happened, basically what we have here is he described her basic sort of features, like her height, her physique, her hairstyle, her skin color, that sort of thing. And the Jedi were like, well, that kind of sounds like someone who lives nearby, who used to be a Jedi, so who like reasonably has the skills necessary that they could fight and defeat a Jedi Master in a one-on-one. And yeah, I mean, they have the same hairstyle and they have all the same, like, they look exactly alike is the thing. Whereas like if May had like a mohawk, or if she had this, that, or the other, they'd be like, well, it was a dark-skinned person, a woman by the description the bartender gave us. And she can fight pretty well. I mean, maybe they still go to see Osha, right? Like, since she just happens to be in the area, which is the other major contrivance with that whole sequence. Yeah. But like, it's a lot less likely. Like, do you see how that's less likely if they have different hairstyles?
There's an additional thing here as well, which is like, so imagine, let's be really generous and say that they could have just found Osha just based on a facial description, and that the hairstyle was irrelevant for just taking them to Osha. But as Sheev says, like, imagine May had like a bald head a la Asajj Ventress or numerous other Sith acolytes, or had hair that was in any way shorter or differently colored from Osha's. When they went to go see Osha, were like, we think it's you. They see Osha's hair looks totally different, is longer, is not a wig. They'd be like, oh, it couldn't have been you. Mm-hmm. All right, well, never mind then.
If the bartender sees her and like May had a completely different hairstyle, like maybe it was colored different, or maybe it was like straight or something, and then he sees Osha and she looks the way she does, he'd be like, well, I mean, she looked similar to that, but it wasn't her. Like, she just doesn't look like the person who attacked the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they just leave Osha be. They're like, okay, well, it's not you, so sorry, it's a waste of time, and we don't get her in the plot.
I have a lot of I have a lot of things to say about that. The first thing is that, well, you say like, okay, you know, about like the hair, like the hairstyles. If she had a different hairstyle, you know, what are the chances that they would have found her? I mean, there are other physical descriptions besides.
No. We've already addressed that. We've conceded
Mhm.
like, okay, even imagine that she had a totally different hairstyle, you know, and they go and see Osha based purely on a facial description. If May's hair had in any way been shorter or differently colored than Osha's, then they would have known that Osha
Or just
wasn't the
differently
person.
styled.
Yeah, then they would have. Well, with differently styled, maybe they could have said like, "Oh, she's changed her hair to, you know, avoid being recognized in the one night since, whatever." But like, if May's hair had been literally shorter, or like a completely different color, then there's not really any way that Osha could be that person. So at that point, they go see Osha, but then like, "Oh, it's not you." Oh, okay, well, goodbye then. And then Osha's not in the plot.
I'm sorry. One thing that I want to add to that is that if that does happen, I want you to like think about where this actually goes with the story. So let's say this does happen. They bring the bartender there. They're like, okay, take a look at her. He looks at her face and he's like, she looks that's her, but her hair is completely different. Where does that lead them then in the investigation?
Nowhere, because Yord doesn't know she has a sister.
That's a good point.
I mean, maybe if Sol was informed of it, but I don't know why he would be unless they believed Osha was somehow involved in the murder.
I mean, the only reason that they inform him at all is because they think it's Osha.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like the idea that they would just be like, oh well, it's not the same hair, you know, and like kind of give up. I mean, if face is identical, they'd at least keep her around. Like,
but how would you know that though?
You
like
know?
the bar guy can just be like, oh, they look really similar. But then you're like, okay, we're trusting this bar guy to think that these two people are identical, but we know for a fact it couldn't have been the same person because there's no way you can like, you know, grow your hair longer in one night to change your hairstyle or whatever. So what? They just arrest her because the bar guy says they look kind of similar.
I'm not saying
it couldn't possibly have been her.
I'm not saying they arrest her, but
what would you suggest they do?
But then they leave her. Then there's not really any other alternative.
Well, hang on. What do you suggest they would do if they conclude it's not her, but she looks similar enough to the person that the bartender described? Like, what would they do then?
I mean, I guess keep her, try to find out if she has like any siblings or anyone else that she might know that might look similar. I don't know. But like, if you meet someone who's identical, if the witness says this is 100% identical to the person except for the hair,
then I just assume that the witness has got it wrong.
Want to at least keep that as a suspect, even if it's not like on the top of your list.
No. I mean, like, again, so if she's got shorter hair, then she's not a suspect. Like, she physically could not be the person if that was the case.
I mean, in our own world, two people who've never seen or interacted with each other at all could look alike. And that doesn't mean they're related or that like one of them is involved in some way or another with a murder that the other one committed. Like, and especially in a galaxy this vast, right? They'd be like, okay, another human who vaguely looks like this person that attacked your bar. Like, I don't know that that's anything really to go off of.
Yeah, even if the bar guy's insistent, like, oh no, their faces are literally identical. At that point, if you're the Jedi, like, okay, but we know for a fact it couldn't be this person, so like, we just presume you're wrong. Like, you know, eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable, and he saw her for a few seconds.
Also, I don't think Yord would ask Osha about her having siblings since he's known her since she was a child, and like would know that she doesn't have siblings. But even if he did, she'd be like, I mean, I had one when I was a child, but she died. And, like, maybe that gives him some kind of lead, but also he'd be like, well, I mean, she's dead, so she couldn't really have committed the murder, could she?
Yeah, but, like, the fact that they even killed a Jedi, would tell them that they would have to have some kind of training with that. So, I'd
argue that Osha's training was I'd already argue that Osha's training was insufficient for them to reasonably suspect her. She was a Padawan and Master, not only but Jedi Master.
I mean, she's a better lead than most, like than the average citizen, But like, if I'm told that a woman attacked a bar and killed a Jedi Master in hand-to-hand combat, like by herself, right? I would assume some kind of outside training, some kind of martial artist group sect somewhere in the galaxy trained her up, and like it has nothing to do with Osha or the Jedi training that she has.
I mean, maybe, but like in the Phantom Menace, when they see that somebody has killed Qui-Gon, their immediate conclusion is that it's a Sith. So it's like like
Sith are
and that
incredibly well
implies
trained,
that-
and Osha. Wow, but Sith are incredibly well trained, and Osha was a Padawan.
Well, yeah, that
He
huge
left the
skill
Order
gap
6
there.
years ago.
But wait a minute. What I'm saying is it implies that in order to kill a Jedi, you would have to have some sort of ability with the Force. So if they have a lead that has an ability with the Force and is,
Well, hang on.
identical
Plenty
to
of
what the
people have
witness
killed.
says.
Plenty of people kill Jedi. I mean, if we just want to use Phantom Menace as the example, Qui-Gon even says this to Anakin, right? People can kill Jedi. It happens. Most people who kill Jedi don't have the Force. They're just like assassins or bounty hunters or criminals or whatever.
Well, okay. The distinction though is the reason they conclude Darth Maul was a Sith is because not only did he kill Qui-Gon, but he did so in a 1v1 and like overmatched him.
Right,
I guess that's what.
No, but my
Andrew's
point is
saying.
right. So like. Yeah, but my point is right. Like, so if you go, oh, we have an account of this person 1v1 the Jedi Master and killed them, and Osha's in the area, then sure, Osha's like a better suspect than the average punter on the street, but like she is nowhere near skilled enough to kill a Jedi Master in a 1v1. She was a Padawan when she left.
And like if she doesn't look enough like the attacker as described by the bartender, then they're like, well, I mean, don't go anywhere, but I don't think it's you. The thing is, I take a lot more issue with the Episode 5 contrivance that they're having similar hairstyles facilitates, right? Because if they didn't have the exact same hairstyle for some reason, and the only difference was that like Maze is a bit longer and she just has to cut it down, that she wouldn't be able to disguise herself as Osha. Osha never gets taken by Chimere. He never works his magic and manipulates her as easily as he did for some fucking reason. And then she never becomes a Sith.
And Soul doesn't die.
Okay.
Soul doesn't die. All the shit with Basil sabotaging Soul, I don't even know what to make of that, but like I'm assuming that had something to do with the fact that May was there. So like none of that happens.
Okay, this circumstance I'm going to bring up, it'll sound incredibly silly, but just bear with me.
Okay.
Let's say somebody goes out and commits a crime and like puts on a bald cap, but you get a good look at their face. And then, when you're looking for the suspect, you have somebody that might, like, let's say they committed a crime with a specific gun. You saw their face, but they had a bald cap on. And then you see somebody that has that exact same face, has that same gun, but has long hair. Are you just going to be like, oh, well, I guess they don't fit the description, so I guess we just give up? Like, well, is that what you're saying?
If I personally saw the face of the attacker and then I saw someone who had the exact same face and the same gun but with longer hair, I'd probably assume that this is like either a sibling of that person, or like if there was enough,
that's where it leads. It leads back to May. The plot advances either way.
But again, so then the conversation Yord has with her is like, yeah, it's not you. Do you have a sister? And I was just like, no, I had one, but she's dead. She died when we were children. And Yord's like, oh, okay. Well, that's a dead end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, okay, but you guys get so upset with characters being like not making the rational decisions, and like, but then you're saying that yours should just be like, oh, okay, oh yeah, I'm not going to look into that any further. Like, you guys are big. I'm sure
think
everything through.
Okay, so hang on. Now we're venturing into impolite territory, so like dial it back a bit. We can have conversations without making like annoying accusations. It's just beneath us. But to address that, like again, it's not an irrational thing to do for a policeman to be like, oh, okay, I followed up with a suspect. We've confirmed that the person I thought was the suspect couldn't have been the person who did it, regardless of how similar the witness thinks they look like. Physically, it could not have been them. So is it someone who related to them, like you look similar to them? And they go, well, I had a sibling, but she died as a child. And I'm like, oh, okay, well that kind of tracks, right? Because you would adopt it into the Jedi Order age 8 or whatever it was.
And again, you have to remember the context, right? So like, say I'm the police officer, right? And the suspect in question is someone that I've known since they were since we were both kids and we grew up together. And I know that person doesn't have a sibling, right? If we go with your bald cap hypothetical, if the suspect is potentially like related to the attacker based on eyewitness reports of like what the attacker looked like. But I know, because I've known them their entire life, that they don't have a sibling. I'm going to be like, you can't be related to this person. Like, you just can't be, unless somehow you have a sibling that you don't know about. And at that point, like, that's not really your fault, is it? You know?
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they have bald caps in the Star Wars universe. Now I'm thinking about that. Sorry if it seemed impolite earlier.
No. It was more just like this little bit where you were like, oh, you always accuse people of being rational, but you guys don't. Just like, we don't need to do that.
Well, I didn't mean to go be like that.
It's fine. I didn't really take much insult from it.
Just to address the bald cap point, the other thing to factor in here is just the timing. I mean, this is the reason why we say that this is a contrivance that Osha is where she is anyway. But like, this has all happened apparently in one night, right? So May killed Indara, and then within the space of about 12 hours, Yord caught up with Osha and was like, okay, last night Indara was killed. Where were you? And May's like, Osha's like, well, I was on the ship, which should be very easy to corroborate, by the way, because like, surely they keep records.
There'd be like cameras or something on the ship.
Ships that docked with your ship or left from your ship would surely be on record. So you could probably easily confirm that she wasn't there, because the only other ship that left apparently from that ship before was the rest of the what are they called? I can't remember what they're called. The
so they went to Narshada, right, for to just go drink and have fun.
And they can all corroborate she wasn't with them. So she's either on the ship. So she was either on the ship, which should be easy enough to trace, or another ship docked with the ship, which again you'd have records of. So the only place she could, and even if you want to presume that she somehow found a way to smuggle herself off the ship and back in one night, the only other place she could store materials like a bull cap would be like in her room on this ship.
So you'd search that. You'd search that.
Easily check it. It's like, okay, there's no wigs in here, there's no ball caps in here, there's no evidence at all in here that she's been to this planet and killed Indara. So yeah, it's looking like it's not her.
Yeah, like basic police work would tell you that like this is not a person who could have possibly been what was on the planet? What was the planet called?
Oh my goodness.
Not Olega, that's the second one with Torben. Whatever, but Ueda, she couldn't have possibly been on Ueda when Indara died, so like she clearly isn't the killer. Or at the very least, if she is a suspect, there's someone else out there who actually committed the murder. But I don't know why we'd consider her a suspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to discuss because I found it kind of a funny criticism. But I mean, yeah, you're probably right. I just thought it was, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, when I was making the video, I was like, I almost want to cut this point just because it seems like such a small nitpick, but at the same time, it facilitates so many different plot points. Right, and it's only there because like they want the sort of imagery, the symbolism of like these are two people, these are two sides of the same coin. They're quite literally like the same person split across two bodies, and one of them starts off on the light side and ends up on the dark, and one of them starts off on the dark side and ends up on the light. And isn't that very poetic and thematic? And it's just.
I think there's a thing here as well. Like it's almost taking refuge. This huge set of contrivances is almost taking refuge in the kind of audacity of like how on the surface nitpicky it seems to someone who, if you're describing it, someone who doesn't know the context, right? It'd be a bit like if I was like, imagine in Empire Strikes Back, Luke was eating a banana, and when he was walking around, Bespin, and they just threw the peel on the floor, and then later in the movie, Vader happened to step on it and like slip down and fall to his death. and then I was describing the films. I mean, it'd be hilarious, but like if I was describing the film to someone and I was like, that was really contrived, that he just happened to step on that banana peel, and their response was like, oh, come on, man, you're getting upset about the placement of a fruit? Really? That seems like a nitpick.
I take that even a step further. I'd be like, what if there was a scene where like Luke was trying to buy an apple, but the person selling the fruits was like, no, you can't buy this apple. You have to pick something else. And then he tries to buy a grapefruit, and he's like, no, you can't buy that. That's on reserve for Senator Tyrus from the Orlego system. And so then he's like, well, what else is there? Oh, there's one banana left over. I guess I'll take that because I'm so hungry. And then I'm like describing, I'm like, all of this happened just so that he could eat the banana, throw the peel on the floor, and then Vader would step on it later. And they'd be like, wow, what a contrivance. And I'm like, yeah. And then they'd be like, what a nitpick. And I'm like, yeah, but like all of that happened in such a contrived manner that caused Vader to slip on the banana peel. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I think these movies, like the Disney Star Wars stuff, it has a lot of things that just kind of happen. That's something that I've noticed. I don't really keep up with a lot of them. I've kind of I haven't finished The Acolyte. I've watched parts of it.
Oh, you're in for a treat, man! That finale. Whoa, oh boy!
I mean, I know what happens in it. I just haven't
Well,
but,
make sure you clap when you see Plagueis.
One thing I don't know though. It doesn't seem that unlikely to me that like two twins would choose the same haircut. I mean,
really?
I've had people in the comments bring up the fact that like in real life we've had studies where twins basically who were separated at birth or whatever, who never knew each other or grew up together, like ended up having the same sort of like outfit style, like hairstyle, like they ended up marrying similar like looking people with like similar names, getting the same kind of car, getting the same kinds of jobs. Like there's some kind of like twin telepathy, I guess. That like causes them to do a lot of the same things and end up doing the same sorts of styles, right? So like they might physically look similar even though they never knew each other.
I have many issues with that line of thinking. The first of which is like obviously like those sets of twins are, you know, 1 in 100 million exceptions. Like the odds against are huge. But there's way more twins who don't end up looking exactly the same after separation. But even if we want to try and make an appeal to like, well, they're twins, maybe they just like similar things. Unfortunately, the show gives us a lot of context for why she would deliberately reject things that make her look like her twin or would remind her of her twin. Like she, as a child, explicitly was like, I want my own identity. I don't want to always look like my sister. I'm very much against that. And then she thinks her sister tried to murder her and killed all her family. Which seems like a really good reason to maybe not wear the hairstyle of, that would remind you of the person you hate most in the world, a person you hate so much that you actually couldn't end up becoming a Jedi because of it. Like you just couldn't get over it. Seems like a weird decision to then like adopt that hairstyle permanently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, it kind of in my mind, I'm comparing it to like another show that had a similar premise, but I feel like it had kind of similar thing about like two twins. One of them is like sort of framing the other, but I feel like that one actually like the two characters look they're identical, but their clothing, their hair is completely different. And like they mention at one point, like the person that supposedly committed all these crimes had like spiky hair, so the characters don't put it together at first because the good twin doesn't, it's just like regular looking hair. So they don't really put together that he's related to him at all. I think there are better, like more intelligent ways of doing that. So yeah, but I enjoyed talking, I guess.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on.
Great. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, man.
All right. Good evening, man.
All righty. That was fun.
Yeah. I guess we didn't get around to mentioning it, but there's also like the second contrivance, right? That's facilitated by the hair, which is like, the ability to impersonate OSHA later on wouldn't be possible if they didn't have the same haircut.
It shouldn't be possible anyway for just so many reasons. It's so fucking stupid. Thing is, I still have no idea. I've rewatched the scene in hindsight, having seen all the episodes. I still have no idea what it was that May said that I guess like tipped Soul off to the fact that she wasn't OSHA. Because they have that conversation about what haven't you told me on Brendock, and then she says, I guess something, because by the time she goes into the cockpit to talk on the transceiver, he realizes it and stuns her. I have no idea why, though. I have no idea what tipped him off.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she was too forthright compared to what I don't know. We don't really get any explanation for that. I also don't really know what May's plan was. I mean, I guess to kill Soul, but why, given that you've already burnt your bridges with the Sith?
You think, honestly, she would have just taken the opportunity to do that while he was unconscious instead of taking the time to change into OSHA's clothes and walk all the way over there?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Like, why not just stab him in the throat when he's on the floor? But anyway.
Shoot him in the fucking head. I don't know. Anyway.
You had a super chat from Cloney Boy.
I did indeed. For £10. Thank you for the super chat, Clone. Don Cheadle, word of the day. Why wasn't I good enough?
That is 5 words.
It's a lot of words. but they are
That is
all
multiple
very
words.
pointent. And I think Don
They're
Cheadle
all very
said them
Cheadle-esque.
best. Yeah.
Like, I believe it was said best by Don Cheadle when he said,
I think it was Don Cheadle, the great philosopher of our time. All right, well, let me stop the timer, reset that, and I don't know how to pronounce your name. Pikel?
hello?
Hello? Gonna give him about 15 seconds to say something.
Right.
Someone play the countdown theme.
Oh,
hello.
Those are words.
Can I be heard? It's probably
Yeah, I can
terrible
hear.
quality. My other mic's broken. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to discuss the opening section of your video.
Okay.
And obviously you're going into about like the fire criticisms and about Charlie. I don't know his surname, sorry. But I think it's kind of a result of so many large figures in the Star Wars community. It sounds weird to say, but it almost feels like there are Star Wars ideologues now that have come up in the sense of Disney Star Wars bad, George Lucas Star Wars good. You know, you have people like Star Wars Theory, right, who will go on about like the bricks and screws criticism in an Andor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously don't. There are a lot of people in the Star Wars community who will dislike something and not really kind of understand how to articulate that. And I do think when discussing media, there's been this big push that every single person, right, needs to be able to, like, I don't know, actually understand media criticism. Like, not everybody does. Like, I think most people, when they watch something, right, will not actually be properly able to articulate their thoughts on it. But I think there's been this big push that when talking about things like Star Wars and all of that, for your opinion to matter on the internet, that you do need to be able to do that. So then that kind of results in things like, oh, why is the fire in space? Or Ki-Adi-Mundi is born 40 years earlier or something. And I think that's kind of been a result of just the Star Wars community. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not sure what the critique there is of Sheev's video there. I mean, I agree with you.
I don't really have like any large critics of the video. Like, I didn't bother to check out the Acolyte. You know, Star Wars recently, just Star Wars in general as a franchise has never been super consistent in its quality. And, you know, if a lot of people say something's good, then I'll give it a watch, but people didn't really. So I don't really have many.
Star Wars has never been like, I mean, I guess it depends, you know, for a given value of consistent has never been consistent. Or at least it's been inconsistent relative to maybe some other media. But that's not a reason then to like just give up on the idea of consistency, right? Like, that's just like, oh, okay, we historically have not always hit the high bars that we know this franchise could hit, but, you know, we're going to try and aspire to do better next time, and, you know, to offer feedback and to the filmmakers, to the fans, in regards to like whether people have or have not achieved that kind of standard of consistency. That can be done without vitriol, of course. Like, I think, and Sheev, I'm sure, would agree. Think something that we often find annoying, and that's why we try and conduct these discussions in good faith, is like, even if you have criticisms, or even if you like something, regardless of a criticism, the way in which the discussions get framed just tends to be like, agree with me or you're a dick. You know, agree with me or you're basically written off as a human being. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's really unpleasant and helps no one, because it means that like criticism that's actually good gets ignored, and criticism that's bad gets elevated by just like the noise on Twitter, which is just not an outcome I think anyone should want.
I mean, it's just been Star Wars. Star Wars discussion has been kind of like overtaken by like this culture war stuff, and you know, it is and the internet will make any issue kind of polarizing. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to, is this maybe kind of a result of larger figures in the Star Wars community, like I was saying, like people like Star Wars Theory and the kind of bigger Star Wars channels and like all of like the grifting channels, instead of kind of actually wanting to talk about these shows that they obviously dislike, you know, probably for the wrong reasons. And that like the bigger figures in the community.
I certainly don't think they help, but I wouldn't just label that as a problem from like, you know, big YouTubers. Like, I'd say Disney deserve just as much of the blame for that as well. Like we talk about grifting, and there are obviously grifter channels, and again, Sheev and I regularly call them out to the ire of their fans. Like he got criticism in his comments on this video because he flagged up Nerdrotic very briefly in a clip, as an example of that. But like Disney themselves as a company are totally on board with this whole like outrage culture. Like they're two sides of the same coin, right? Of just like they want the circle of outrage to carry on going because it benefits both sides. Like it makes the grifters seem important and elevates their voice and gives them money, and it keeps the conversation going, which keeps the money coming in for Disney. So they're both very keen on pursuing this, and to the detriment of real artistic quality, because it means that like no real criticism gets offered and no real criticism has to be accepted.
I'm not defending Disney in any way. Like obviously, it's a giant company. Like I do not agree with like pretty much everything they do. Obviously, I think just art in general being kind of like art under capitalism will always suck. Now, I'm not trying to defend Disney, but yeah, I was just wanted to kind of chat and see if you kind of agreed with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I basically do agree. I keep on telling people I'm working on these videos. I am working on these videos. It's just such a long process, and I'm really busy. One of the videos I'm working on at the moment is to readdress the whole objective versus subjective art criticism debate, because I think that's a field of topic which is like really tied into just like discussions about the nature of criticism, and I think both sides have really messed it up. Like everyone I hear trying to defend objectivity does a piss poor job of it and basically gets it completely wrong. But like ditto for people who argue that it should all be subjective, where I think that position is just completely internally incoherent. But yeah, like essentially we're in a place where people talk past each other, and that's not fun. And I soon may that die and be replaced by genuine conversations like the ones hopefully we're having now and in the future.
Hopefully, but it's just kind of not the nature of the internet. Every issue will be blown way out of proportion. Anger makes money. Rage clicks make money.
Yeah.
So as nice as it would be to think, unfortunately, but I do appreciate what you're doing.
I have faith that we can at least talk around at least a good sizable minority of people to reject that perspective. Honestly, I think people are getting tired of it anyway. Like there's only so long you can be angry, right, before it just exhausts you.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a lot of that now on online spaces where, there's a reason why Star Wars Theory, for example, did this like very sharp turn recently into like the real griftosphere stuff, and it's because the previous like lesser outrage wasn't getting the clicks or the engagement. Like you have to keep on ramping it up to keep people engaged, and it gets to a point where like it's so over the top and it's so performative and so silly that people just kind of tune out. And I think hopefully we're starting to get to that point. But yes, I'm not quite sure where she is. Oh, he's gone to get food. That's why. I was wondering why she was being so silent there and just letting me waffle on. But yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, you said you haven't checked out the Acolyte. I can't say I recommend it. There's much better television that deserves your time. But yeah, it's nice. It was good to have you on, man. So thanks for coming on.
All right. Have a good day.
All right. Bye, man. Oh boy. Well, until Sheev gets back, I'm going to entertain you lovely lads in the chat and ladettes if we have any, which I hope we do. Multi-gender spaces are fun. Oh, it's Madvocate. Hey, Madvocate. Can you guys stop being civil and start throwing around insults and ad homs around? All right, Madvocate, you're a dick. There you go. I did it. Do I get brownie points now? Do I get a gold? I want a gold star. Give me my gold star, please. It sets off all the nice OCD buttons in my brain when I get gold stars. We do have ladies in the chat. Excellent. Too often fandoms are a sausage fest, so it's good to have some women present. Let's have a look. Anything interesting happening in the chat while we wait for Sheev to return and get the next person on? Rage clicks on Twitter. Rage clicks on Twitter is like twerking on music. It's scummy but effective and lucrative. Yeah, I mean, there seems to have been a race to the bottom, right? Like the lowest common denominator is the one that gets pandered to when it comes to like mass media of all stripes. But I don't mean lowest common denominator in a kind of like intelligent sense. I just mean in the sense of just like what is the appeals to the basest, most like animalistic parts of all of our brains, regardless of our intelligence. Just like that thing make me angry. I can be angry with someone else. I feel good.
I'm back.
Cool. You just caught the end of my Neanderthal impression. I hope it wasn't terrible.
There was an emergency. I'm very sorry I missed that last guy. I didn't get a single chance to talk to him. That's unfortunate. I hope the conversation was civil.
It was very nice. He didn't really have any criticisms. He just wanted to just sort of talk about the nature of like the way criticism and fandom's response to it has kind of gone recently, and we basically agreed on everything. So it was very, very nice chat. Very nice lad.
Nice.
Very nice guy.
Of course, that's the one I missed.
Yeah, you only get the worst people like me.
Yeah, all of you. All right, then.
It's not bad enough to become Velma. I don't know, man.
I never watched any of Velma. I watched a few people cover it, and that was enough for me. Anyway, Jack, you are on. Hello.
Hey guys.
What's up, man?
Hello.
So, this is this won't take very long. This definitely won't take 20 minutes. This is a very, very minor criticism I had of the video. I pretty much agreed with most of it, but this very, very small thing stuck out to me, which I think is a testament to like how well put together the video was. That really only one tiny thing stuck out to me. I hope I don't sound too bad, by the way. I know my mic can be a bit fucky sometimes.
Oh, you
sound
sound pretty good.
That's perfect. Right. So very, very minor point. So one of the things that stuck out to me whenever you were talking about the Sith was specifically like stuff with Plagueis and how he should definitely have killed Chimere. And I completely agree on that. Chimere has put the Sith Grand Plan in so much jeopardy. He should definitely be killed. But there was one thing that you pointed out that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way, and it was specifically the point about how Chimere should be killed because he's training an acolyte. And one of the examples that you brought up with that was the example of Palpatine and Dooku, where Palpatine ordered Dooku to kill off Ventress. And the only thing that kind of ruffled my feathers a bit there is that, yes, Palpatine did order Dooku to kill Ventress, but Palpatine didn't have a problem with entertaining that idea for a while. He did allow Dooku to keep Ventress around as an acolyte, using her for like assassinations or like using her as an acolyte. Essentially, he allowed Dooku to train her. And I can't remember off the top of my head if Palpatine was aware of Savage, but I assume he was aware of Savage, wasn't he?
I don't think he was aware of Savage until Savage had already broken free of Dooku's control.
Yeah, as Dooku's apprentice, I don't think he was aware. Mainly because Dooku would have kept him secret because of what he did to Ventress. Yeah,
probably. Actually, that's a good point. But yeah, and obviously this isn't canon, so it doesn't have any bearing on like the Acolyte or how the new canon wants to talk about the Sith. But Maul in Legends, Plagueis was aware of Maul being trained. Plagueis was happy to kind of entertain that for some time. And while I completely agree with all of your other criticisms of how Plagueis has essentially become like this non-character who is just twiddling his thumbs on a cave, presumably doing nothing to interfere with his apprentice, just, fucking everything, I think it's a little bit... I don't think that was the best argument at all, really.
He's doing what to everything? Oh my god.
Okay, I take your meaning, and you know what? That's actually a fair point. I think with both of the examples you use, though, Dooku training Ventress as well as Plagueis allowing Palpatine to train Maul, I think in both contexts, the understanding that the apprentice figure, which would be Dooku in the case of Ventress, had with their master was like, this is not, me joining up with someone to overthrow you. We're using this person to exact our own will and to, in the same way that like Vader and Palpatine use the Inquisitors. It's like they're not really Sith as much as there are acolytes, and we're going to use them to our own ends, but like we're the true Sith. And I think that was the same thing with Palpatine and Plagueis. He was like, I'm training up this Dathomirian, this Zabrak, but like he's just a grunt, he's just an assassin, he's nothing to be worried about. And Plagueis was like, okay, if you say so. And I think that was the implication with Palpatine, Dooku, and Ventress as well. But then obviously Palpatine saw through that and was like, no, Ventress is getting too powerful. She needs to die. So like, I guess there's a way you could play that, right? With like Chimere, Osha, and Plagueis, where like he tells Plagueis, I'm just training her as like an assassin, But also, if he's been listening into their conversations in the cave, I don't think he would buy that. Yeah, like one of the things that I was going to mention is that, now, as we all know, Leslie Headland just loves to talk about everything in interviews and
give away a lot of things about where season 2 seems to be going. And one of the things that she mentioned is obviously the kind of Chimera and Osha's story is destined to end in tragedy, because we know, of course, Plagueis eventually takes on Palpatine. And I believe there was one quote, I'm not sure exactly what it was, that kind of hinted that Plagueis is going to kind of force them to kill each other, essentially. So that kind of, that's very similar to the Palpatine ordering Dooku to kill Ventress thing, where Plagueis might entertain Osha's existence for some time and kind of use her for maybe assassinations or something that hopefully doesn't jeopardize the Sith any further than they already have been. But eventually he is going to kind of be like, hey, you got to cut this stuff out and you have to kill each other. Whoever survives can be my apprentice, that sort of thing.
Mm.
I think there's also, just to add on to all these points, there's like very different contexts between the different cases were brought up. So with the Dooku example, Dooku is openly operating as a Sith. At least the Jedi are well aware that he's a Sith. They're not hiding at that point. So Ventress being in a cat spore doesn't jeopardize the plan. Ventress can run around chopping people in half, and it doesn't matter to the grand plan as far as Palpatine's concerned. It only becomes an issue when it becomes clear that Ventress is being groomed to help Dooku replace Palpatine. And then he's like, no, that's no bueno. With the Maul example from Legend, Sheev, you know way more about this than I do, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the way that worked was that Maul didn't even know Plagueis was around.
Maul didn't know about Plagueis.
Yeah, Maul didn't know Plagueis was around,
And in fact, there are other books in the EU where he refers to himself as like one half of the existing Sith Order at like points in the timeline where Plagueis would have been alive. So like he clearly believes he and Palpatine are the only ones.
I think that was something that Sam Witwer himself actually kind of took issue with, and then that was like cleared up as like, Maul didn't actually know.
That was the Campfire Stories quote from Dave Filoni. He was reading for that.
Oh, what a lovely quote.
Things from that book that the Clone Wars contradicts, and he was like, "Hey, Dave."
In some stories the lightsabers are blue, and in some stories the lightsabers are green.
Because the point I'm making there with the Maul example is like Maul was operating as a fully trained Sith Lord. Like he wasn't brashly going around exposing the plan. Like he was very careful.
Yeah, Palpatine was like, "You're not gonna expose us because if you do, I'll fucking kill you.
I will murder you." Yeah.
Well, except in that one comic where he went off to kill a Padawan.
But you see, that was all manipulated by Palpatine, actually. So it's
true,
fine.
And that means we can't criticize it.
I think there's also the difference of by that point in the timeline, like Plagueis was essentially doing away with the rule of two, right? Like as long as the plan wasn't jeopardized, he didn't care that Palpatine was training someone else with Sith secrets, but provided that it wasn't to replace him. And he only really allowed that for Palpatine because Palpatine by that point was a fully trained, fully like old Sith, like well not old, but like fully into his power Sith Lord. Like he considered them to be equals at that point. Whereas at this point in the timeline, Plagueis is very clearly like the senior partner to Chimera. Like Chimera is an apprentice, not an equal. So he would not be allowing. I mean, Chimera to be behaving in ways that would very clearly expose the Sith, which this does. I mean, he literally told them he was a Sith. My God! And then like, he also wouldn't be allowing Chimera to like grab a potentially like super powerful apprentice that is clearly going to be trained to like overthrow Plagueis. Because like, Osha isn't just a powerful person; she is very powerful in potential.
Okay, I can totally see that. I think that's kind of cleared up that argument for me. I think I can probably just head off now. This is very, very nice talking to you guys.
Right, well, thanks for coming on, Jack.
I'm excited to see your House of the Dragon stream. I can't wait for that.
I've been seeing your comments on my tweets. Don't worry, we're gonna talk about our issues with House of the Dragon season 2.
Oh, trust me, after that finale, I think I'm on the same train as you guys.
Okay.
It's bad.
It was it had some moments, but there were a few things that made me quite angry.
Man, I was telling Jolly earlier today that like when Alicent showed up on Dragonstone, I like just audibly I was like, oh my fucking God.
I had kind of already like mentally prepared for that because like obviously this episode leaked and I had seen all the leaks coming up to this, and I remember I watched like that whole ending sequence got leaked. And I remember as soon as the scene cut to black after it did the whole like Rhaenyra Alicent parallels thing, I was like, "Wait, is that it? Is that it? Is that the season? Are you kidding me? That's it?"
I think I really enjoyed the bit where Alicent sold out all 3 of her male children, including Daeron.
Even poor sweet innocent Daeron. who never heard of fly.
Darren's got nothing to do with this. By all accounts, is a really lovely lad who plays the harp, and
He's just been hanging out in Old Town. He hasn't done anything.
Remember, guys, this is the same Allison who stood in front of May Lease to protect Aegon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping that this season was just a stumble, but I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see what they do.
Well, anyways, it's been really lovely chatting to you guys. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Have a good evening.
See you guys.
Later. All righty. And that was just under 10 minutes.
Ready then.
We're making good time, Ace Ventura.
Delicious.
I think there was a super chat. Yeah, there was from Wisdom. So before we get our next guest on, we'll read that out. For $5, thank you for the super chat. When is the video going to be finished, Jolly?
Oh, it's happening. All right, it's on. It's coming. It's just people need to appreciate. I am a poster doc. I am very busy. I work like 17, 18-hour days sometimes. Like usually 16, 15-hour days.
Excuses. If excuses could build countries, we'd all be.
If excuses could make videos.
I hope you get more epic gun emoji in Among Us, Sheev, Innocent, or 1977. Oh, I'm sorry, I should probably read that out in the right. 1977!
Ow, my eardrums.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's for all of you.
That's all right. I just keep on tricking poor Innocent Sheev in Among Us and then brutally murdering him when I have his trust. It's just a thing I like to do.
You. I will never, ever trust you again about anything.
Among Us has destroyed any trust in this, destroyed any sense of trust in this friendship.
It's like that meme about how like Uno destroys families.
Yeah,
modern version of that is Among Us. Anyway, welcome on, Laura. You are on.
Obviously, the second I get on, my cat jumps on my keyboard and locks me out of my laptop. So I'm very sorry for that.
That's all right.
I'm back in because he's a rude baby boy. I just wanted to go back to the hair thing. As a girl, all of us have the same hairstyle. Like, that's not something that would have shocked me in the start. Like, it's like you probably can relate to the Rachel hairstyle in the 90s, which every fucking girl had. Like, we all have the same hairstyle at all points. Like, and the fact that one had longer hair and the other one had shorter hair didn't really surprise me. But the way they took that and then ran with it, that just pissed me off. Like, I was hoping that the show was good. Like, I still was like on my Andor train and like, this could be good, this could be fun, getting more Star Wars. We've got a female lead, this could be good. And then it just went so far off the rails. Like, I don't even have hope anymore that Andor season 2 is going to be good.
Oh, please don't say that.
It
needs to be good.
I'm knocking on wood. But like,
yeah, so if it's bad, I'm gonna just like smash my head into a desk.
It's like that.
Also,
like this is gonna work, Steve. I know it will, because I don't know what I'll do if it doesn't.
Yeah. Before we address the hairstyle thing, like, is your PFP OSHA eating jelly beans?
I thought that was cereal.
I don't know what it is. It's amazing. I totally stand that. That's a great PFP. I love the idea that the hairstyle was just like what was fashionable in the galaxy then. Like every human female just had that hairstyle. Like like the Rachel from Friends.
You can go from Alderaan to Tatooine without seeing some girl with a OSHA or May hairstyle.
Like Jackie comes in the next scene and she's changed her hairstyle to have that hairstyle, and she's like, I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, I was like thinking more of the lines of all black girls like have that hairstyle because it's just a popular black girl hairstyle. Because like if you, for example, take my office where I work, we're 18 ladies, and 15 of us 18 ladies have the same hairstyle in various length and color. Like the hair thing is not something that I would say would shock me. Like, sure, they have the same hairstyle. Big surprise. It's like the typical hairstyle for that race and that age group.
Sure, but I guess the 2 points here would be like, one is like, you know, May really lucked out that her hairstyle was, you know, A, the same, but also B, that she had the longer hair. Because if she'd had shorter hair than OSHA, then, you know, I obviously couldn't have been OSHA, which is really lucky. I guess the other thing there is also just like, I was trying to say, oh gosh, I completely lost my other point now. My brain. Was it the color? Well, Sheev, you pick up the slack, and when I remember it, I'll come back. Oh no, I do remember it. It's the trauma thing, right? Like, most people don't have a traumatic experience as a child that would like totally lead them to reject that specific hairstyle and then carry on wearing it regardless in a way that really benefits the person who traumatized you.
Yeah, that too. I don't mind that they had the same hairstyle. Like I said, I just hate the way they went about it. Like it's like the writers are just stupid. Like,
yeah, because that's the thing, right? Like,
why can't we have some nice Star Wars?
Oh, absolutely. Like, we don't take issue with the idea, with just the base fact that they had the same hairstyle. It's how you write it, right? It's the whys and the wherefores. If it had turned out that, like, she really missed and loved her sister and, like, cherished her memory and was, like, actively trying to keep her alive in her mind, and, like, that was a culturally important hairstyle they'd shared as children, then I would have been like, yeah, cool. Yeah, of course they'd have the same hairstyle. That's fine. But that's not what we got, sadly.
Yeah, that's very, very unfortunate. And also because we just talked about Hot D, that was a hot mess. Like, totally ruined, jumped the gun. It's done. Like, it's unwatchable now. We're in season 8 territory. It's horrible. Fuck.
Oh, you're on season 8. I'm getting backlash for saying it's below season 6.
Oh no, fuck no. It's just as bad as season 8 at this point. Like, it's unwatchable. They've ruined every single character. Like, I'm just like at the point where, like, let the Night King come in and kill everyone.
I really loved how they just wrote Nettles out. That was amazing.
That White Walker in Damon's vision looked so bad.
Oh God,
I don't know why. I don't know why it looked like that.
the not
like,
Night King.
I've looked at like pictures in like a Discord that I'm in. Like that White Walker is fucking Damon. Like they look the same if you put them side by side. And that's
Damon
just
the
about the worst thing that I can imagine that they would do. Like we know that Damon's body's not found, so if they make Damon that White Walker, like,
oh my God, please don't say that.
They can sure hope that we don't burn the place to the ground.
You know what? They might as well at this point.
True. Like the thing is, like they could literally, like Basil from the Acolyte could turn up in House of the Dragon season 3, and like sabotage Vagar, and I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not?
I mean,
at this point, might as well. I was saying to Sheev earlier, like, I love it how we're in season 2 and like entire major factions just haven't been mentioned. Like the Tyrells just haven't been talked about. Dawn got like a brief joke and that was it. Like the Vale apparently haven't sent anyone despite saying their words.
Someone has Otto.
Dornish.
Yeah, they also make Kristen Cole Dornish.
Is Kristen Cole not Dornish in the books? I haven't read.
No, he's from the Stormlands.
Yeah, he's from the Southern Stormlands.
He's from the Dornish Marches, which is in the Stormlands.
Right, okay.
It also makes no sense to make him Dornish because he doesn't look Dornish and he's not Dornish, and it makes no sense because Dorne is not yet a part of the Seven Kingdoms.
Well, you see, the writers just kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
Yeah. Like, nothing makes me madder than that Hot D ending. Like, I watched the leaks too, and I didn't even want to watch the finale at that point. Like, I was so goddamn disappointed. And then I watched the finale, and somehow they made it worse. Like, I don't know how they did that. Like, I like one scene in that finale. And that scene was the scene where Alan of Hall talks to his dad and tells his dad, like, fuck you. And I know they're going to retcon that because I've read the book. I know where this is going.
Yeah.
So, fuck them.
Well, as someone who doesn't know where that storyline's going yet, because I know some spoilers, but I haven't read the book, so I don't know everything. All I can say about that scene was that it took an entire season for one single thing to happen between Adam and Corlys.
No, it's Alan. Adam is the Dragonborn.
Adam's the other one. I'm getting them mixed up. They both start with A. Same fucking thing.
Got them mixed
Adam
up
is supposed to be older than Alan.
Yeah,
well, either way,
I guess they swapped around for the show. It was bad. I mean, like, please feel free, by the way, to tune in to our because we're going to do a Hot D stream at some point as well, like relatively soon. So please feel free to come and listen.
I gotta rewatch the season and take some notes. But that'll be what we do next.
Inflict that brain damage on yourself first to get us
Bring
ready.
alcohol, like just get like a mega pint of like alcohol. Just go with vodka. Trust me,
I've got my spirits lined up for that stream. I'm just gonna store up my booze just to get through it.
Yeah, you'll need it. If you don't do the stream in the middle of the night for me, I'm sure you're gonna watch it.
I mean, it'll be the middle of the night for me, right? Because like Sheev normally does it at what, like 3 o'clock his time, which is like 9 o'clock my time. So
Well, I mean, we can start earlier. I don't know. It's getting other people on that's the issue, because they're always
Cool,
like,
we'll
"Oh, I
start-
work until this time." Blah 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 blah.
We'll start at 7 o'clock in the morning my time. That's 1 o'clock in the morning your time. That should be that's
Perfect.
fair.
Perfect. Yes.
But yeah, thanks very much for coming on, and I hope we were able to at least share in your misery about the way the Acolyte went. Provide some
You
much
sure
needed
did.
catharsis.
I really enjoyed the videos and the
Thanks.
live streams, the super long live streams. I always watched them while I was working.
Well, that's better than work. I'm totally on board with you
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I'm so glad you enjoyed them, and I really love that PFP. It's made me smile. So
Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too.
all right, bye.
Bye.
All right, we got a few people lined up in this queue, so I think we should just speed run because we haven't gotten another
Speed it.
super chat. We did get a new member, Colin
Ooh.
Hagemeyer. So
I
thank
remember
you
you,
for becoming
Colin.
a sheevling, Colin.
A wormlet, a sheevling. Is it a sheevling or wormlet?
It's sheevling, although I'm considering doing it more traditional, right, where it's like different factions of the Empire, since I'm Palpatine. But I don't know if I want to do that. That seems boring compared to
I guess
making
that
it about
means that
worms.
when someone becomes a member, we can just be like Stormtrooper.
My lord.
My lord. Fuck you. Oh,
And Funny Hatter, you are on. Hello.
wow,
Hello there.
That is a funny hat. Hello.
Thanks. They don't make these anymore, so I'm glad I still have it.
Oh, nice.
Well, thank you for having me on. I don't necessarily have anything to disagree on. I actually want to get your take, both of your guys' take on a video essay that I'm currently working on right now. But it does relate to the Acolyte being on how not to write the same person twice in this context. How supposedly Osha and May are supposed to be the same person, but just in two bodies, but how the show really fails to really deliver that point, because from what I remember seeing, and help me out here if there's any details I missed, it's just the way that they act. They act so completely different from one another. It just seems like they have like their own.
Well, yeah, they're like entirely different people. Like, I don't know what the show means by saying they're the same person.
Right, because like I don't remember seeing anything in the show like showing like they have like the same memories, or if like maybe like one of them gets hurt, they both get hurt, kind of like in Knights of the Old Republic 2, like something to implicate that like they are like the same person by the Force. But since we don't see any of that, like what does that necessarily mean? Or like maybe how would you guys, if you were in the position, let's say you were lucky enough to actually work at Lucasfilm, how would you portray writing the same person technically twice, and not like a Tyler Durden in the narrator thing, like saying for a Fight Club, but like two physically different people that are the same person? How would you guys go about that?
I mean, my
feel like
way
I
of
just
doing
leave that-
that would be I would give them completely different upbringings. So like it's the same person, but you give them completely different contexts and life experiences. So then they make different decisions and have different motivations and different perspectives on the world based on those experiences, but they are fundamentally driven by the same thing because they are the same person. Like, I think you can make that work.
I still feel that at that point they've become different people. Like, even if they started off as one person and two bodies, as they are now totally different people. They have different experiences.
And so I think that's a philosophical difference, right? It's like they started off literally as the same exact entity, but they've had different upbringing, and it's a matter of like, it's a question of the self. Like, what defines you as in who you are and what you are? Is it like your consciousness, and then how do we define consciousness? And of course, Jolly, you're a neuroscientist, so you could talk it in my ear off on what exactly that all amounts to. But like, for all intents and purposes, or you could do the more literal approach and just literally have it be like, if one of them gets hurt, the other one feels it. Or is affected by it in some way, maybe not quite as severely, but like, Osha gets stabbed in the arm, and then May feels like a sharp pain in her arm that like debilitates her.
I just don't think the concept works in the context of the Force, right? I mean, like, I don't know, maybe in the context of how Disney have redefined the Force, but certainly like originally the idea of why the Jedi view becoming one with the Force, which even this show does, right? Like Jackie's like, oh, it's a privilege to watch something become one with the Force. So apparently they do still believe that. But the whole idea of becoming one with the Force was like that your identity is almost an, not almost, it is like an illusion. It's not real. And so like when you rejoin the Force, like you are becoming as close to creation as you can possibly be, right? Like you're giving up the kind of illusions of self and just folding back into everything else. So in a universe where like identity is just not real in any kind of concrete metaphysical sense, I don't really know how you could then be like, this person has like one identity shared across two bodies. What does that mean in a universe where identity is an illusion?
Yeah, I feel like Disney really like fucked themselves like when they came up with the concept of like two people that are supposed to be the same person, especially with the concept of the Force being in the show to where multiple Jedi, like even like say Yoda, is able to feel like the feelings and like the thoughts of other people for like miles and miles away. And like how exactly like would you go about like describing like making these two characters that special? I mean, they already say that they're already have virgins in the Force, which I can see how people bring up the argument of making Anakin not that special anymore. But if that's the case, to where like, because we never seen like anybody in Star Wars before, or at least I don't remember seeing anybody in Star Wars before where they're the same person just in two different bodies with different consciousness or displayed different consciousness.
Is the dyad not technically that? Or is the way they tried to play it off, right? Like the dyad is like just two people who are one.
I don't even know what the dyad is trying to say about what a person is, you know?
I think
well,
J.J.
again, like we're dealing with writing concepts
cool.
We're dealing with writing concepts written by people who just do not understand on any level the kind of philosophy of the ideas they've just introduced, and therefore just are blundering through it with all the care of a small child waving a chainsaw. Yeah, I don't know how I mean, maybe I'd go something if I was forced to write this concept in the Star Wars universe. I would probably try and do something like almost like Sense8 or something like that, where like from their subjective experience, like the person keeps like flashing, but they keep flashing between each other's like experiences and bodies, right? Like they remember where the other person was. They'll subconsciously, like, you know, one of them will learn a tick, for example, like the way they brush their hair or whatever, and the other one will just like, without even knowing it, will start regurgitating the tick, will start doing it as well. You know, things like that, where they've become utterly inseparable in a kind of spiritual sense. They just happen to be in two places at once, like treating it almost like quantum superposition. But like again, like that's.
I mean, I kind of liked in Haunting of Hill House when they had like the twin thing with Luke and Nell, or like you know, most people brushed it off as like, oh, you're just being silly, but like they did literally feel each other's pain in a lot of places. Like Luke mentions that he like broke his foot, and then she called him a few minutes later and like said that she just had like a sharp pain in her ankle that she couldn't explain, and like stuff like that.
His neck really hurts the night after she dies,
and he feels cold and stiff, and he doesn't know why. And it looks on the outside like he's just on heroin again. You know, he's just drugged out and like he's in withdrawals or whatever. But like, no, he actually feels like he's dead and he's decomposing because his sister is decomposing. And like you could do stuff like that with Osha and May, if you want to say that like they're so interconnected, like through the Force, and they're like tied together by the thread, that like they feel each other's pain to an extent, and they're affected by each other when one of them dies or when one of them is sad or angry.
I guess that's the thing, right? Like two people being that, and you know, not one person, I guess, but like two people, for the sake of argument, being so entwined like that, I feel like to anybody else would look like, you know, an extreme mental illness, or like there's something really wrong with you because you're, you know, doing things like having memories of things you've never been to, or like sleepwalking in way, you know, you might find yourself sleepwalking and doing things that the other twin is doing, or like repeating tics that you've never done before, or suddenly behaving in a way that no one expects, like, you know. This kind of mirroring behavior would surely look really unnerving to anyone on the outside, and might even, like, from the inside, be like an incredibly unpleasant experience.
Well, I mean, with the acolyte, that could have even been how they got Osha into the plot instead of the whole haircut contrivance bullshit. Like, what if she just like sees herself kill Indara in like a dream or something, and she's like, I didn't fucking do that, and then she finds out Indara's dead, so she goes to find Yord, and be like, hey, I like saw a vision of myself killing Indara, and I don't know what that means, but then I found out she was dead when I woke up the next day.
Yeah, and they're like, well, then you probably killed her. And there's a whole like, I mean, Hannibal season 2 almost did this, right? For those who've seen that with Will Graham, the idea that like someone else had like convinced him that he'd committed murders that he'd never done by implanting false memories, and so like he just, from his perspective, he thought he was going completely insane, and everyone else thought he was guilty.
Like the plot could literally be Osha like feeling like she's going insane because she's like, all these murders are happening. You know, and I don't remember doing them, but at the same time, I have these dreams that are so vivid. It's as though she's right in front of me when I stab her. You know, it's as if I could reach out and touch her face. You know, I don't know what's going on with me. And then it's like, oh well, May actually survived. I guess you'd have to bullshit an explanation for how she and May never felt each other in those 16 years, but like I'm sure you could workshop it.
Maybe she cut herself off from the Force.
I mean, she literally did, I guess, after she stopped being a Jedi, but there was that 10-year period where she was a Jedi. So, yeah, again, you'd have to workshop it.
Yeah, you just change the plot to make sure she never became a Jedi, or that soul, I don't know, somehow severed her connection to the Force when she was a child, or, you know, something. Although I don't know if I'm comfortable with someone having that power. Jesus Christ, now that I think about it.
Maybe it's a matter of like the Jedi Council did, because again, she should have the same situation as Anakin, which is why they wouldn't have accepted her into the Order. And maybe they were like, we don't actually want her becoming a Jedi or being able to access the Force, so we're gonna basically like suppress the those latent abilities, I guess, you know. Like we're gonna like combine our collective power and basically put like mental blockers in her mind that makes her unable to access the Force. Something, I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to workshop it, but yeah, that's basically the three, I guess, that we're going for.
Mm. Well, I see why you guys aren't working at Lucasfilm. You actually had to put thought into that.
We had a brainstorm for 5 minutes.
I know, right? I mean, crazy. I do have like one more thing I wanted to talk about. I'll try to make it like very quick before I have to get out of here. But I was just in a conversation about this yesterday with somebody. It was about like the first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, to where like the Grand Inquisitor is coming in with the Inquisitors in Tatooine, and they're like, we're looking for a Jedi, blah 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 blah. And the thing that throws me
who we are.
The thing that really throws me off, I mean, besides the makeup, is that the Grand Inquisitor, from what I remember, he keeps saying like the Jedi, they can't help helping people. We need to be hunted down. But it's like, shouldn't he be saying that like the Jedi are like bad, they are corrupt? Because what he's saying is he makes it seem like if like they were like really good police officers and they're hunting them. It's like, well, wouldn't that make you look like the bad guy? I mean, I know from an audience standpoint, we're supposed to look at them as bad guys, but like in the context of the world, they need to like think of like the Jedi as bad, because that's what Emperor Palpatine did. He put them in a bad light, to where it's like my cause for killing the Jedi was just because they were trying to take over the Republic.
Well, yeah, like it's an acknowledgement in universe from the characters in question that they're actually just evil, which is really lame. You know, like imagine if Vader in the OT was just going around being like, ha ha ha, I love drinking the blood of infants, ha 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 ha. You Jedi are so weak because you care about people. Like, no, he thought he was going around restoring order and peace. You know, he thought he was doing what was right and what was good. Like you could write the Inquisitors to be like, the Jedi, you know, in their folly, they accumulated power and wealth and status, and all they really cared about was themselves and like elevating their own position, and suppressing anyone who tried to rise in their ranks that they deemed unworthy. Because, you know, the Grand Inquisitor's whole backstory, if you get into the comics, is like he wanted extra knowledge that they refused to allow him access to.
Right.
They put him in his place, and then once they're all wiped out, he's like, I have free access to the library. Fuck you, Joe Costa knew. So you could do something like that, where it's like, now that the Jedi are gone, like we have a chance of actually reigning in this chaotic galaxy.
The Grand Inquisitor became evil because he didn't have a sufficiently advanced library card.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's that, plus he was one of the temple guards that was there when Barriss gave her big speech, so he was also like mulling over her words there.
I was not allowed in the adult section of the library, and that's why the Jedi had to die.
I want the backstory for that, where like we see the scene where he's like trying to check out a book from the library, and he's like, he just puts it on the desk, and Jacasa's like, "No, it's a bit old for you, isn't it?" And just like puts it behind the counter, and like you just hear it in a monologue. Like,
okay,
that was the day I decided the Jedi must die.
You can make fun all you want, but I think it's a compelling enough backstory, right? Like, the thing about Jedi knowledge and like holocrons and things like that is that you can attain significant power if only you have access to the information. So like the Jedi limiting your ability to access it and suppressing certain information that they believe to be too dark, like that's enough for, like, I can see a character seeing that and being like, no, fuck you guys, actually.
I'm just clowning. Isn't that also like Anakin's thing in the book as well? Like he wants access. The reason he wants to be made a master is that it gives him access to the restricted section of the holocrons.
He wants to know how to save Padme. And he believes that the Jedi have ways of healing people that are on the brink of death, or at the very least that like there are certain more dark side, like arcane ways of saving people that are dying, but like that, that's like forbidden
apparently he was
knowledge.
right because
Apparently he was right. Yeah,
the Force healing in the sacred Jedi texts.
The sacred Jedi texts.
So yeah, I mean, you could do that with the Grand Inquisitor. Is all I'm saying is like he could view the Jedi as having been like, you know, an impediment to peace and prosperity of the galaxy at large. And then he could be like, now that they're gone, we can like make we can build a real galaxy that like of like people who are allowed to learn and grow and prosper. But like you people harboring this rat, this Jedi rat who's hiding in your saloon, like when all they've ever done is put you down and suppress you, like, you know, like you could do something like that. Instead, he's like, oh, they care so much and they're so compassionate and we're evil and we're gonna kill people so we can draw them out, and that's their weakness, is that they can't help but get involved. It's like,
and that's how we find them. We throw knives because they protect the innocent.
Like, you could make that a theme, but like don't have the villain character state that overtly, because like, cringe.
I'd rather have the parallel Doofenshmirtz backstory, where it's like, one year I didn't get the present I wanted for Christmas, and then I decided to be evil.
I had a toy train, and then one day I lost it.
Choo choo. The Jedi didn't even show up to the day of my birth.
I wanted the purple lightsaber crystal, but Windu took it instead of me. From then on, I was
at the end of the Phineas and Ferb movie, when Doofenshmirtz is like, I found my version, like my choo-choo I never lost. It was in a box labeled VHS tapes. Go figure. I love Phineas and Ferb. It's so good.
Well, thank you guys very much for having me on here. I hope you guys have a great day and bitching more about Star Wars. I know I do on a daily basis, but thanks again for having me on here, and thanks for indulging my silly little thoughts in Star Wars.
Oh, it's nice to have you.
Indeed, yes. Love the hat.
Thank you. Like I said, you can't get it anywhere, so only I have it now. Too bad, suckers.
Nice.
To have hat as a power only one has achieved.
But if we work together, I know we can discover the secret.
Is it possible to acquire this hat? Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Palpatine's been like surfing Etsy, just trying to find it.
Anakin finds it like a rare one on eBay, and like he tries to bid for it, and he gets immediately outbid like the second the window shuts.
They're like scrolling eBay, like, oh my goodness, someone called the Kenobi series is selling this guy's kidneys on here.
Someone called Obi-2 Kenobi are selling this.
By the way, I have to say, I absolutely adore the way that you title your videos, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like kidnapped me and like took my kidneys and put me in like an ice bath, something like that. I love how obscure that they are in your videos, and I really appreciate that.
He didn't use the incredibly violent one I suggested, which I'm slightly upset about. But to be fair, I think the video.
I didn't want to get demonetized.
Wait, what was it? What was it?
I can't say it on stream. We'll probably get demonetized as well.
It was bad. It was very bad.
It was really over the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to find like a happy medium where it's like, this needs to be severe and like convey how upset I am, but also I can't say anything too bad. Otherwise, the video is never getting past. Like, it's never getting recommended on the algorithm.
The next one has to be so-and-so deliberately spread cholera to the orphans of the slums.
Someone put a rat plague in my city, and now I have to fix everything myself. But anyway, thanks again for having me on here. Have a great day, and may the force be with you, I guess. Bye.
Yeah, have a good one. All right, and we got a super chat from Wisdom for $5. So that lightsaber blaster was freaking awesome in that one comic. Ryan claimed that the fans really want Rhaenyra and Alicent to have those two meetings. Oh, they did it because the fans wanted it. That's what it is. I don't care what the fans wanted.
Don't listen to the fans. The fans, I'm sorry to say this, but most fans are not good writers. Don't listen to what the fans want.
You could just have the season build up to and end with the taking of King's Landing, and then they could have that conversation.
Have the meeting then.
Yeah.
What was it I said to you, Chief? I was like, what was it I said to you about like fans, Chief? I was like, fans don't know what they want. They think they do, but they don't.
Like, it's literally that, yeah. And honestly,
like the thing of like the customer's always right. Like, no, they are. Anyone who's ever worked in retail, like, no, that's bollocks. The customer has no idea what they want.
If we're gonna contrive ways for Rhaenyra and Alicent to talk to each other anyway, then I'd rather you just tell me they have cell phones. Like at this point, it's better than what they actually do.
They send carrier pigeons.
They've been Skyping, my liege.
I mean, I guess actually, to be fair, I guess the ravens are carrier pigeons, right?
Pretty much.
I still love
they serve the same function.
I still love that bit at the beginning where Alison's like, "Has Rhaenyra answered any of my letters?" And the guy in the council's like, "You mean after you murdered her son?"
Mistakes were made in the hours following King Viserys' death. Or no, errors were made.
just have Otto storming in, just like every time someone makes a suggestion like that, like, "Idiot! Half-wit!
Feckless! Impetuous!"
To get how you talk to her, Alicent is the queen. Like, the queen is my daughter, and my daughter is an idiot.
Dude, every time I see Rhys in an interview or like a picture of him or like a picture of audio, like I just automatically go, "The rat catchers!" And I have to control myself.
I go, "Peter Parker."
Poor Peter Parker.
I am a lizard man. Blah 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 blah.
Anyway, I'm gonna go refill my drink real quick, and then I will add the next guest on. So
I am being heartlessly abandoned, so you can go get the refreshments.
Indeed.
That's all right. He's just gone out to get cigarettes, like my father, who definitely came back. Let's have a look. Clifford says, "Fans are like parents. Anyone can be one, but not everyone raises right to good kid plot." Yeah, I mean that's basically it. I mean, to be more precise about what I said about like don't listen to the fans. It's like obviously you should be in the business of like giving fans things that they're going to like, right? That's going to appeal to them. But there's a difference between giving the fans what they will like, what they need, versus what actually, like, to steal a quote from Otto, right, where he's like, "A good servant has to tell his king an uncomfortable truth from time to time, otherwise he's failed as a servant." It's that, like, you give a faithful servant gives someone what they need, not what they want. It's the same thing as a writer. Like, if you're just listening to the online swell of opinion of like, "Oh, they think it would be really cool if we had like Clegane Bowl," and you actually do that, you're going to make your product worse like 99 times out of 100, because it's just not something that fits naturally, and you're just shoving it in to be fan service. And well, gratuitous fan service is how we end up with things like Deadpool versus Wolverine. So don't do that. Let's have a look. 5,000 cigarettes. Yeah, Andrew, I guess that is how many he's getting. I mean, he also bought quite a few. It's been like 26 years. So just that. That's actually I got a funny story about smoking cigarettes. As weird as that sounds, I used to be an actor. This is long ago when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, and like one take, I was like halfway through a cigarette when the take starts, and so like every take, I had to be at that stage of the cigarette, which meant like in the course of about an hour, the director forced me to smoke about like 400 cigarettes, and I felt so fucking sick like for days that I just like that's what put me off smoking. Like after that, I was like, no, I can't do this anymore.
I mean, you see like in movies and stuff, like characters have cigarettes in their mouths, like they're smoking. Do they just have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, well, not anymore. Now they usually have like fake cigarettes, and they're like CGI. In the big budget movies, I'll CGI the smoke, right? Because people don't want to have to do 300 cigarettes in a row because it's bad. It gives you nicotine poisoning.
Yeah.
On the other hand, with food, as we learned from that TikTok I sent you, sometimes you have to eat 30 quails in a row.
Look, okay, there are worse things to do with my day than eat 30 quail.
True, but then like the reverse of that, and again, this is something I had to do as an actor. Like there was a scene where the scene began with me throwing up into a toilet, and so like you have to hold fake sick in your mouth, and like what they normally do for that is just like cold gravy and like chopped and chicken soup and like chopped up random bits of crap, and it's just like 13 takes of you holding that in your mouth, trying not to breathe, and then doing the take, and then rinsing your mouth out, and it's really unpleasant.
That sounds awful, but you know what? That's the grind set. That's the craft.
Yeah, and then my reward was that my plot line got cut.
Anyway, I'm gonna add DCR. You're on. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Can indeed.
Okay. So first of all, I apologize if my English is poor. It's not my native language.
Sounds pretty good to me, man.
Fine. Yeah, sound good.
Well, before I start, I wanted to ask if you could remind me what your stance on plague is showing up are.
I think it's really stupid in terms of because there's multiple different ways you could take this. I believe it was said that Leslie Headland said in one of her infamous interviews that Plagueis is indeed Chimere's master. But since that wasn't established in the show, I'm not taking that as gospel. Either way, Plagueis should want Chimere dead for any, like, no matter which way you spin it, basically. Either he's his master, in which case he shouldn't want his apprentice running around exposing the Sith all willy-nilly, or he's a rival Sith, or like Jason isn't even a Sith and he's a pretender and you should want him dead for that reason. Because again, like, no matter what, he's exposing the Sith and he's being very flippant with his identity. And Plagueis wouldn't appreciate that. He wouldn't want that. So that's my issue with Plagueis. I don't care about him being the age that he is, because I don't even think it's consistent in the EU how old Plagueis is. And that's also not a factor because it's a different continuity.
There's also the presentation issue, right? Like, separate to the whole, like, you know, Plagueis should definitely want Chimere dead for all sorts of reasons. There's also just the idea, like, if we're going to have a Plagueis cameo on the show, which, like, I think we all just assumed was a given, right? Like, we were going into this being like, there will almost definitely be a Plagueis cameo, and like, that's actually something that we were like vaguely excited for. Like, oh, it'd be cool to see Plagueis. I hope they do it well. And then the way they did that was just like, look,
yeah,
he's creepily in a cave for half a second. Oh, wow. You know, like, that is the most pure key jangling I've ever
because
seen.
they could easily have had him be like an actual character in his own right, or at least someone who has a major stake in one of the plot lines. Like the one that we suggested was he just be part of the senators investigating the Jedi plot line. And he actually has a stake in that, and he's like influencing that and slowly restricting the power and influence that the Jedi have in the Senate, like something like that.
No, yeah, I agree with that. But what I want to know, because I think you mentioned it earlier with some other guy, that I think one of you mentioned that, well, when it comes to his presentation, he comes off kind of like this mustache twirling villain. And I don't know if you could say that this Plagueis showing up kind of dumps his character down a bit. Yeah. Like, I heard people argue that Plagueis showing up in this show basically makes Plagueis look stupid. I don't know if you agree with that point.
Well, I do, because again, like, with all the context that we have, he should want Chimere dead, and the idea that he isn't actively trying to kill him, which is what the show seems to be telling us, means he's stupid. Like, just by nature of not trying to kill Chimere, he's an idiot.
Okay, so what I want to argue, I'm not really defending the show, I don't like it, but what I was kind of thinking is that when the writers were making this show, they were considering probably making another seasons, independent if that happens or not. Putting Plagueis in the last episode like a tease, like, you could argue it's just some fan service with no purpose, but that it could also be like they have some other storyline in mind.
I mean, yeah, but like the problem is we haven't gotten anything substantive from him. Telling me, look, he's here now. Look how cool he looks, and he'll be relevant later. Like, he'll actually be a character later. Like, that doesn't really do anything, right, for this season of television. Like, we don't have any version of Plagueis in the show as it stands right now that is anything meaningful. He's just there to like stoke the fan boner, you know.
It's not just that it's not meaningful, right? It's like there's this kind of a misconception, I think, and I think a lot of writers have that as well, that like you can just shove stuff on screen and it won't mean anything other than like, oh, look out for the next thing. And I'm like, no. Every time a character is on screen, you are characterizing them by nature of their existence on the screen. Like, what they're doing in the world, no matter how briefly, tells me something about them. So you have to be careful how you do it. Now, if we, like, you know, Plagueis is a very recognizable guy. If like a moon had walked into the senators meeting at the end, we would all have known who it was, but that wouldn't, and we'd all have been like, oh my God, Plagueis. And that could have been the tease, but that wouldn't have damaged his character. Because, like, you know, for all we know, he's doing something very important there as part of that meeting. And he's where we'd expect him to be doing the kind of things we'd expect him to be doing. Whereas here, it's like we just dumped him in a random cave in a place where, like, he should, you know, in someone's cave that he should absolutely want dead and should be trying to kill. He isn't doing that for some reason. He's just like weirdly looming, like, you know, crawling around the corner of a cave where he's alone on a planet and a beach where he seems to be alone, so that he can gurn at the camera for a few seconds to almost break the fourth wall and tell the audience directly, like, "Oh, things are coming," and like that makes him look stupid. That characterizes him as being dense. There was no need to do that. You could have teased him in any number of ways that didn't damage him.
Right. So, like, not only have we gotten nothing of substance, but we've already damaged him just by virtue of having him here for a senseless and pointless cameo.
Okay. I get it. I mean, that just was kind of like my issue. Like, I didn't understand exactly why it made him dumb. But when you put it like that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was what you guys think in general of these people that like to criticize the show, but they brought up the most like stupid or senseless kind of criticism, like, oh, a fire in space, or like my favorite one is like the factory resetting of the droid like negates the Death Star, like that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, negates the Death Star? What?
Yeah, like there are people saying that the factory reset of the droid negates the Death Star for some reason. I don't understand.
I'd have to know what line of reasoning that like kind of criticism comes from, because I don't know what that means.
No, I don't either. I wanted to know like what you guys think of people that criticize in this kind of way. Like they don't take like valid criticism, you know?
Yeah, we take issue with people who are just finding any and all reasons to hate the show. I mean, that's what I was basically getting at in the opening of the Acolyte review, which is more or less the subject of this stream, like us covering that in deeper context. Like, there are people out there who are just finding whatever reason they can to shit on the show, even if what they're criticizing doesn't matter or isn't actually a problem or is literally inaccurate. Like, it's not even just that it's not that big a deal, it's that it's literally not correct, and but they're taking it and running with it anyway. And so that's like, you know, with the Chiari Mundi being born in 93 BBY in the EU, and they're being like, see, they're retconning that, and it's like, but they're not though, because that's from a different continuity. So like, not only is it not that big a deal, it also literally is not an accurate criticism. You are just wrong. Now, I don't know what to make of the factory settings Death Star one, because again, I just don't know what the line of reasoning would be for that. But like, I can't imagine it's a good criticism. Like, I don't see how those two things connect. So I'd call that stupid as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I would shit on
generally
it
try and
it like that.
We generally try and promote the idea of like healthy critical reasoning skills, you know, like just being an honest intellectual accounting of your arguments, whether they're for or against a product, because it happens on the other side as well. Like, we have people who unironically argue to us that like space in Star Wars has like some areas that are a vacuum and some areas that aren't arbitrarily, which like was bananas.
The defense for the fire in space thing, like literally that some parts of space just isn't a vacuum in Star Wars, but some of it is. And it's like, that's not how vacuums work. That doesn't make sense.
But oh well, you know, whenever we encounter these kinds of criticisms, like, you know, 5% of it will be like the deliberate stirrings of online conversation by people like, you know, like Nerdrotic, for example, like the Griftosphere, who are just doing it to provoke outrage because it makes them money. They churn that outrage mail to get some grind out of it. And then like 95% of it is either people who made up their minds beforehand and are now looking for reasons to justify their hate and aren't thinking it through, and we have an issue with that. Or they're people who like, maybe they do have a good reason to dislike the show, but they maybe lack the skills, the media skills to like actually put into words what it is they don't like about it, and so they just resort to like these popular arguments that they've latched onto and gone like, oh, that must be why I didn't like it, and then they just defend that point to the death, even though it's nonsense.
I mean, that's what I feel like happened with the Charlie Barnett thing. Like, he said a silly thing. He accidentally said Anakin instead of Luke, and he did it twice too, which implies it wasn't just a slip of the tongue, and that he actually believes Anakin blew up the Death Star. And that's not that big a deal for the reasons I've gone over in my video ad nauseum. But like, a lot of people made a big deal about that, and then it became kind of like the thing that everyone made fun of. And now I've come along and said it's really not that big a deal though, and it's not an indictment on the show's quality or even of the writers of the show, because like, he's not a writer, he's an actor. And people were like, nope, you're wrong. And I mean, so far I haven't heard any good arguments for why, which is kind of why we decided to do this stream.
Yeah, well, I think that it just comes down to the fact that people are so angry at the current state of Star Wars and this show in particular, that they like they can acknowledge some of the valid criticism, but it just isn't enough for them. Like they need to grab onto something in order to hate it even more. Like we can all agree the show isn't very good at all, but I think that these people are just like nitpicking at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's that Incredibles meme, right? Of like, you know, we'll be like, I don't like the Acolyte, and someone next to us will be like, I also don't like the Acolyte. And we're like, oh, cool, we agree. And they're like, yeah, there was too many black people in it. And we're like, no, you're not affiliated.
You're not affiliated with me.
Like, go away. That is not our argument. Leave us alone, you strange person. Like, please get better arguments.
I mean, the thing is, like, along the same lines as what you just said, like, yes, fans are angry at Lucasfilm, and they have good reason to be angry at Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm has consistently just destroyed the franchise that we love. You know, it has consistently made shit product after shit product after shit product without any care about like the larger continuity, actual good storytelling in its own right, any character work, or like anything that makes even the most modicum amount of sense. You know, they have good reason to be angry, but a lot of people have said to me about the Charlie Barnett thing, like, it's because we're already so jaded at Lucasfilm that an actor saying Anakin blew up the Death Star is just enough for us to like hold him in contempt and be like, and that's indicative of how little regard they have for us fans, that one of the actors for a new Star Wars show would actually say that in an interview. And it's like, that doesn't track. Like at that point, you're just angry and you're taking it out on whoever you can. And like, that's not cool. It's not productive, and it doesn't actually like do anything, you know, doesn't mean anything.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, that's basically it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Anyway, Shiv, I love your videos. Joey, I'm still waiting for you to upload something.
It's coming, I promise. I swear. I'm
It's
a really
never
busy
coming.
guy. Sheev, you have seen so many pages of scripts over it, so you know it's on its way.
It's never happening. He's lying.
Alright.
It's all one big drug front.
Yeah, I'm
Money
secretly,
laundering.
I'm a mule. I'm using people to smuggle mules across the southern border.
I use the
It's like-
mules to smuggle the mules.
Yeah, like just like a human carrying a donkey across the border, and they're like, it's for sale
Just
north
like
of
on
the
its
border.
back.
Yeah. So you open a car boot and there's like 13 donkeys just like hiding inside.
Well, anyway, guys, good evening or good night, whatever it is.
Yeah, it was
Good
really nice having
evening.
you on. So have a good evening, man.
Goodbye.
May the force be with.
May the
Alrighty.
Force be within and without and coherent.
And anywhere in between.
Well, not the world
Alright.
between worlds.
Well. All right, Cinnamon Bob, you are on. Hello, how do you do?
Is he Canadian?
No, why? How would you know that? Is my audio good as it is now?
You sound
Yeah,
really
it sounds
good,
fine.
yeah.
All right, perfect. So I don't want to waste too much time. It's pretty much just a quick thing I wanted to mention in one of the previous streams, I think on the inhibitor chips thing. So you did say, Sheev, on the execution, when Palpatine explained that the chips were affected by a parasite in the water, that in a vacuum, it's pushing it a little, but it's fine to let it slide going forward with the Jedi not thinking anything was amiss.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much I just want to quickly shatter that, because I think it was overlooked that Shakti was a part of that meeting. And she was also there when AZ345211896, however many other numbers, I couldn't remember past that. He kind of explained how the two chips, like only one of them was degraded while the other one was perfectly fine as it was removed. So she should be aware that there's a discrepancy with Palpatine's explanation for both of the chips being infected and that causing them to go haywire more than any other Jedi there.
I mean, there could be like two things can be true, even if that is a bit coincidental. I'll grant. Like Shakti could have seen that Tup's chip did malfunction and looked that way, whereas Fives' looked like the standard version and it looked fine. but like they both had like there was something in the water that like a parasite in the water that they both drank that infected them. Like what I'm getting at is like they could have been a plausible explanation, as well as the fact that like one of them had a damaged inhibitor chip.
Yeah, if you're Palpatine, all you have to argue at that point is there's different stages of infection. You know, one of them had been infected a lot longer than the other, and like so, you know, that's why one of them looked a lot more damaged. The other one, at first glance, looked normal to the droid, but actually on closer inspection had these problems. It's very easy to bullshit an answer to that would pass muster.
Yeah, like maybe he took out his inhibitor chip like before the infection spread to that area. You know.
Yeah, and particularly because you have the Kaminoans effectively on side, right, for Sidious, where the Kaminoans are the ones, like, the Jedi are not cloning experts, nor is Shakti a neuroscientist.
Yeah, they can fudge data to go along with whatever story Palpatine comes up with.
Yeah, because the Kaminoans are in on it. Well, at least to the extent that they're hiding that from the Jedi.
That makes a bit more sense. I guess it's just... the way it came across when I watched the videos, I thought it was giving a little too much credit to the execution for Filoni.
Now you bring it up, I do actually wonder, the Kaminoans know about Tyrannus. They don't know that Tyrannus is Dooku, and I don't think they even know Tyrannus is a Sith. They just know that he ordered the clone army, and I'm assuming they believe it was on behalf of the Republic. But, like, does that track to mean Palpatine is also in on Order 66? Like, would they believe that? Or... Because obviously, like Palpatine and the Kaminoans have to come up with like the same falsified story, right? In order
but Palpatine just feeds the story. Palpatine feeds the story to Dooku as Tyrannus, and Tyrannus feeds it to the Kaminoans.
Okay, but like I'm asking like from the Kaminoans' perspective, right? Like when Palpatine is giving this absolute bullshit story, do they just believe that he's also being deceived?
Well, no, I presume that the order of events, right, is that like the Kaminoans tell Palpatine, who tells the Jedi.
Okay, so they're being fed a lie by Dooku or from Tyrannus, and they believe that they're deceiving Palpatine into giving this false. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, makes sense. And
otherwise, that would lead to a very uncomfortable conversation, right? When Lama says like, so we found, and Dooku's like, sorry, Palpatine's like, you found a worm, right? And like, yeah, wait, what? How do you know this?
2 worms.
It's like, well, the dark side is a pathway to many, but I mean, politics is. Oh shit! Okay, you'll just kill him.
Electrocution.
Yeah, just immediately electrocutes Lama, and then he comes out of the room, and everyone's like staring at like, what was that screaming noise? He's like, oh, there's an electrical conduit fault in the wall. Very unfortunate.
Oh, I'm afraid the inhibitor chips will be quite operational when the Jedi arrive.
Palpatine, how did you make it out? It's like, oh, I absorbed it using the Force. Oh shit! Again. Oh damn!
He fucking kills them too.
I just thought of that. Honestly, an image came in my head, Jolly, when you said that. That's part of like the Sith training where like they're trying to talk their bullshit in front of like the Senate, so they're practicing behind closed doors with their Sith master, and then they mess up the line, and the Sith just shocks them immediately.
Was it it was GTU Chief. I had that joke about like how Palpatine keeps on having apprentices who spill the beans, and how annoying that must be for Palpatine.
Oh yeah, Maul doesn't know how to shut the fuck up. Honestly, I'm surprised that the entire Jedi Order didn't know Darth Sidious was Palpatine.
Yeah, and Dooku doesn't either. Like, Sidious is like, okay, this time around, I'm picking an apprentice who won't spill the beans.
Control everything.
Yeah,
just
immediately.
Don't know it.
Immediately, Dooku's like, what if I told you the Senate was controlled by Darth Sidious?
Shut up!
I have good news for my lord. I've told the Jedi everything. You what?
Yeah, I sat Obi-Wan down and I walk him through all of it, and like he knows about you, just as you commanded. He's like, I didn't say what are you talking about?
I gave him your home address. I told him about Plagueis. It's like
I gave him all your tax records and your social security number, and
I told him where in your office you hide that lightsaber.
Yeah, the Jedi should actually. You know what? He checks his watch. He's like, they should actually be in your office right now, breaking down the sculpture that you keep it in. What?
That explains why Darth Maul was so much more talkative in the Clone Wars, I guess, because he was already betrayed. He was no longer his apprentice. So in the Phantom Menace, he pretty much said nothing, but then he's perfectly fine with talking all about Sidious's plan and all that, even though he's not all that privy.
Bro was scared shitless by threat of death because he was like, I can't say anything.
That is a really interesting point, which is if Maul's, in the Clone Wars, his whole thing is that he wants to replace Palpatine and be the true Sith. why not just expose him? Like, you surely know who he is, right?
I mean, yeah, I believe he knows that he is Palpatine. Yeah, like I believe he knows that.
Just send the Jedi a memo being like, BTW, Chancellor Palpatine is a Sith Lord.
See, that's something I always question myself. But like, I also thought, like, if he did say that, they'd be like, oh, well, he's obviously lying, and he's just trying to make us doubt the Chancellor.
Sure, but then when Palpatine keeps on doing really suspicious like stuff, at that point they're like, maybe. Also, Obi-Wan's like, well, actually, Dooku did tell me that the Senate was controlled by a Sith Lord.
Yeah, and it's not like Dooku and Maul could have possibly corroborated that story, so like maybe there's merit to this.
Yeah, you at least look into it at that point, and that's enough to bugger up the plan.
Yeah, I don't know. I that's again like something I always wondered as a kid.
Why does Maul do that? Is he stupid?
Is he stupid? Why did he not cut the beam?
Oh boy.
But anyway, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that was pretty much it.
All right.
Thank you for having me on,
Yeah,
Mr. Jolly and Mr. the Senate.
I was going to be really pretentious and say that's Dr. Jolly to you, but I was like, that sounds really dickish, even as a
That's
joke.
Mr.
So, yeah,
Dr. Professor Patrick.
Yeah, that's Mr. Supreme Chancellor Dr. Undertaker.
That's my lord
Jolly
to you.
Yes, my lord.
I insist on my full title of Lord Paramount of the Westerlands.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Canadian man. Cinnamon Bob, if you will.
You too.
Where are his eyes?
Ah. Okay.
It turns into an impromptu singing stream.
We're getting through this queue pretty quickly, so I think we can just speed this up, and we'll be done within like an hour, maybe. Hopefully, Jinx.
Delicios.
Anyway, Vicious Bagel, you are now currently on air.
Oh, hello. Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
I can.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I've been trying to figure out how to turn off Discord notifications on my computer for like 20 minutes, and my apologies if there is a Discord notification at some point. But hopefully,
that's right. If I hear a pinging noise, I'll just assume there's a bomb in your flat, and I'll call the police.
Well, I live in Texas. It's not a completely untrue assumption. But so I have two topics that I wanted to discuss. One is very heavy. The other is not so heavy. Do y'all
all right,
have a preference?
Let's start with the heavy one first.
So,
yeah, heavy first.
Okay, so Torben. So I have so many problems with the way that was handled. And just to start, like she brought up in this video, I completely agree that what they did. And do y'all mind if I use words like the R word or like
go for it?
Like, yeah, it was. Fine. In my opinion, a form of mind rape, and there's no getting around that. Absolutely, it's completely, just unforgivable, unacceptable, awful. And the way it was handled in the show, and I won't say brushed off because it does impact the series and his arc. However, the way it was handled at the end of the arc, where he kills himself, that is horrifying. That made that like that. Mm-hmm. I was so angry about that, and the fact that he has to atone for that. And I know that there were things obviously he did wrong, but the fact that his arc ends with having to kill himself to atone for what happened to him, that made me so angry. I thought I was going to die. Like,
yeah, I don't know if I agree that he did anything wrong, like at least not meaningfully wrong. I think
the worst you could say is like he impulsively ran off, but then like Soul would have just brought him back if they didn't believe there was danger present once they reached the fortress. So,
and the only reason he did that was because his mind had been violated so utterly. The thing I'll say, right, because like, I want to just be very, very careful in terms of what exactly we're criticizing about that. It's like I have no issue with a Disney Star Wars show addressing topics of that kind of severity. I think, honestly, there needs to be more adult conversations about things like that in general media so that people are more aware. I don't even necessarily have a problem with him, committing suicide at the end of his arc. What I do have a problem with is the fact that there was absolutely no introspection on the part of the show as to whether or not that was merited or not. They just seem to just go, well, he did do a bad thing, and then they just move on. And
him killing himself should have been treated with so much more weight when
I know, and when
you have the context,
And I just remember I and not to get into extremely dark stuff, I have struggled with depression and such, and seeing it treated so poorly just infuriated me. And I completely agree with your part of the video when you talked about it. And I was like, this is so insightful. And I wish that there had been even a modicum of that kind of insight in the actual show. And it just is shocking to me that this is the state of the media landscape, and this is the kind of storytelling we have to accept. Like that's crazy to me.
It was the fan response that really got me. I mean, like Sheaf can attest to this. When I saw those, like some of these people on Twitter being like, "Well, actually, like what she did to Torben was totally fine because he went into her house," I got very, very angry.
He was angry.
I sent many angry things to Sheaf. Yeah,
and not to bring real world politics into it, but I really do think that it was because he's a male character. Like if that happened to a female character, we would be having a much different conversation. And if you want proof of that, Jessica Jones.
I'd like to
that's
think
a good
that's
season
true.
of television.
Yeah, Jessica Jones handles it really well, and people should definitely watch season 1 of Jessica Jones. But unfortunately, terriers also exist. So I know female characters don't always get the same consideration that unfortunately people just don't seem to be very good at recognizing rape unless the word is explicitly used in the media, and the media goes out of its way to frame it as bad.
The show itself has to kind of hold people's hands because a lot of people just kind of don't want to really acknowledge that it's a thing. So if it doesn't even address that it happened, a lot of it will just go over people's heads, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like having to talk to I don't want to use the word child, it's having to talk to someone who doesn't understand these kind of things and having to walk them through it. Like, okay, this is what that means, and this is why it's bad. And I just think that it's insane that the general consumer of such content has to be explained to why that's bad and why why this topic should be treated with more nuance and more respect. And Torben's arc was just absolutely just abysmal and completely disrespectful. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And without trying to sound like a white knight, so I apologize if this sounds a bit patronizing. This is one of the reasons, unironically, why we need more women in spaces like Star Wars and general media landscapes. It's because women unfortunately suffer this a lot more than men do, and are therefore much better at recognizing it, and are therefore much better at calling it out when a show does it poorly.
Yeah. Yeah.
To address the point about if this were, if the gender roles were reversed, right? Like if Torben was a woman, this would have been treated with a lot more respect. Like Charlie already said, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but also I do agree with the sentiment that there is an issue that I'm finding in media and just generally in the way conversations happen in these spaces where.
Are we talking about The Boys?
Yes,
well, the boys was one example I was thinking of, but just in general, it doesn't seem like male sexual assault is taken quite as seriously. And I don't want to make it a competition because it shouldn't be a competition. They should just both be treated with the same level of severity. But it does seem like it is of a lesser importance to a lot of people when it happens to a man.
Yep.
Well, certainly of lesser importance to male showrunners.
Yep. Yeah, and people and I've seen people on Twitter making jokes like, wish that happened to me. Like someone in the cat that wish that happened to me. Wish that were me. She's so hot. That Torben should have enjoyed that. And I'm like, okay, I have thoughts on this, but
yeah. It's gross. So, it's very, very gross.
So, yep, that's the heavy topic I wanted to get into. And thank you.
Well, don't worry, we're totally with you on that one. We think it was abysmal.
And I just wanted to say I appreciate both of you for kind of creating the space I feel is more safe for women like myself and other people like non-binary people, LGBTQ people, people who don't see themselves as represented. I wanted to thank you both for creating such a safe space for us in this community. And I cannot give enough kudos to the fact that you both are very intelligent and very respectful towards these issues. And that is something you don't see very often in the Star Wars fandom, to say it, to put it nicely.
Well, thank you.
I mean, Sheev's intelligent. I'm just a dumbass with a hat.
He's an imp of the perverse.
Yeah.
It was obviously this was not intentional, but we're both bisexual men, which was something we only found out half a year into our friendship. But it's just nice that it's turned out that way, I think, because it means that we have a space that I think is a bit more welcoming.
I think it was literally you told me you were bisexual, and I was like, "You're bisexual? Me too!" And then we became best friends.
Oh, that's how my entire friend group
amazing. Yeah, and then we went on a TV show, and they're like, "Well, you're just greedy. You need to pick a sexuality." And we're like, "Oh, damn."
It's actually one of my favorite stupid memes. It's a meme that says bisexual is just it's something like, "I hate bisexuals, just choose," and I just for like a long time. For a long time, like, I'm like, it's crazy that people actually believe that sentiment. But then I see that meme, and I'm like, it's just, you know,
it's fine. Just flip it on them, right? 'Cause I've had that as well. Like people are like, oh, you're just greedy because you like guys, men and women. Just pick one. Like leave some for everyone else. And I'm just like, that's a skill issue. Get good, scrub.
Yeah, and as a lesbian,
I am greedy.
Yeah.
I want it all.
And then as a lesbian, you like have the rhetoric of like people being like, oh, you just haven't met the right man, and I'm like, that's you know, not my take on the matter, but you know, to each their own.
But no, I'm genuinely thrilled that that you feel like we've created a space that's like open to everyone, because that was like we were really trying to do that, because so much of the online places are unpleasant to be in. And
then I go to like the little Platoon or Mauler, or not Mauler so much, but like more like Nerdrotic. Like when I see like creators like that, and I see their ideas. Oh my god, sorry. There's a like I just feel I don't feel safe in that environment. You know, I don't feel like I can, you know, express my thoughts, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're a woke liberal," and I'm like, okay. if that's your only defense, then I don't think I want to talk to you.
Woke head.
Yeah. I totally understand that.
We're just normal men.
We're just innocent men.
But yeah, I really appreciate you guys. It's one reason I've become so, you know, it's such an enjoyer of this channel, is that I hear, you know, Sheev's takes on Star Wars, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, that is correct, and not having to resort to woke bad or women bad or gay people bad or people of color bad. I'm like, thank you, that's so refreshing.
No,
when I hit 100K, I'll completely change it up. But until then,
when the channel starts like going down and like how quickly it grows, like suddenly become a racist, you know.
Yeah,
we've got to boost those numbers.
Well, we all know you're a grifter, so you know.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely is. God, I'm so glad someone else said it. Sheev, you grifting scum.
Jolly's been keeping this in for like a year and a half.
Just pent on rage.
Yeah. And then the other issue that I have, it's less context for, and perhaps less of a good understanding of, but just the ever-changing mechanisms of the Force. Like whenever I hear about the Force, it's like, and the thing is, my Star Wars hot take is that I don't hate the midichlorians. I'm a medical student. I don't care about I like the idea of like the Force having like a biological.
We found a same person. We found a same person.
Jolly and I have always defended the midichlorians. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm someone studying to be a doctor. I like the idea of the Force having a biological cause. I think it's cool. And then you say that on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh, you're just like gross, disgusting scientist." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah," but
facts. Ugh.
I know, but the thing is, and now like I'm hearing all this stuff about virgences, and I'm like, what? Because it kind of reminds me. It kind of reminds me about the fact that there's like pockets of magnetism on Mars caused by it's like deposits of minerals in the surface of the Earth. And that's kind of what I assume they're going for with virgences, like pockets of space-time that are more force sensitive. And I'm like, this is just making my head hurt.
I mean, I don't intrinsically have an issue with the idea of virgences. I think you just have to be really careful how you write that, right? Because I mean, you know, in the same way, like you pointed out, like there are pockets of magnetic disturbances from around ferrous mineral deposits on Mars, or you could like look into the deep space and see, you know, gravitational lensing effects from dark matter, and be like, oh, there's some kind of like pocket of gravity essentially there. I'm totally cool with that, especially because, you know, the Force is literally a force. It is a fundamental force within this universe's physical makeup. It presumably has some kind of physical basis. You just have to be really careful about what you introduce and when and how, because otherwise you lead to contradictions all over the shop.
Yeah,
and I never had a problem with it because I didn't like they never defined it in the movie, so I never knew like what a virgins in the Force even meant.
Well, you see, Sheev, it's an anchor being. You see, without it, the entire universe falls apart.
Yeah, America Chavez is actually a virgins.
Yeah, she's a virgin's nexus.
But like I remember I saw someone was talking about how like Luke and Leia's lightsaber is a virgin's point, and I'm like, stop it, you stop that. No.
Oh, no, the Winfrey situation, like you get a virgin and you get a virgin. Everyone gets a virgin.
And I'm like, I'm so tired. I mean, I love Star Wars. I've been a Star Wars fan since I was literally like a child. The first movie I ever saw in theaters was Revenge of the Sith, and I have been a Star Wars fan since like I could walk and talk, and why does it
make me feel so old?
Yeah, but I just extremely I've become so frustrated with it, and it's not that I dislike it anymore. Like I said, Revenge of the Sith, I know it has problems, but it's probably my favorite movie, like Star Wars movie, because it was the first one I saw. I love the OT. I love Andor. I love a bunch of I love, older stuff. For years I would read any piece of Star Wars media I could get my hand on, any kind of game I could get my hand on. I was so into it when I was a kid. And now I watch The Acolyte and I'm just like, I feel nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mother died and I felt nothing.
I don't know how old you were when you watched Revenge of the Sith in theaters, but I was 4.
Oh man!
I was
seeing those like flashy lightsabers like swinging around in the Mustafar duel was like
when was Revenge?
cinema
2003
for little
2005.
baby Sheev.
Yeah, 2005. Oh my
May
god!
2005.
Yeah, I was 5 years old. I remember I think I had just started kindergarten, and I just remember sitting in that theater, and it's like I joke like it's like a core memory, but I oh my god, sorry if you can hear that, my alarm keeps going off. I remember just seeing it and immediately just becoming like the Star Wars fan. I was so obsessed with it, and it just makes me sad that I watched The Acolyte, I watch Ahsoka, I watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I just think, what happened to you, man? You used to be so cool.
I mean, the strategy we're always suggesting now is like just do what Doctor Who fans do, which is just gaslight bad media out of existence.
Yeah,
because that literally happened in Doctor Who, right? They're like, oh, the Doctor's half human, and the fans are like, no, he isn't.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, I remember because I watched the first season of Doctor Who when I was a kid. I think I was like 9 or so when I watched the first season, and I just remember like just thinking, I was like, oh, this is so cool, this is awesome. And then I tried watching some of the who's the actress who plays the female Doctor? I tried watching some of that.
Jodie Whittaker.
I tried watching.
I'm building Sheep up to that because like I'm walking him through Doctor Who slowly. Like we're just coming to the end of season 5, and he's really liking Matt Smith. And I'm just like 3 seasons in, you're gonna hate what's coming.
Yeah,
now.
like I tried watching that like a couple episodes that season, and I was like, this is nothing. This is nothing. I can't watch this.
Yeah.
So
hopefully though, like I mean again, like if we build up enough of these like hopefully like large spaces where people can come on and talk in a and feel safe to do so, there'll be enough sensible pushback that isn't just people screaming on Twitter, that maybe people will start listening and adjusting these media. I mean, one can only hope. You got to couple that obviously with just like not giving them money for making bad media.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping the combined effort will eventually pay off.
Yeah. I extremely have and I also used to be a big Marvel fan. Same thing with Marvel. I used to be obsessed with Marvel. Like I saw Avengers. I think I saw Avengers 5 times in theaters when it came out. I was just obsessed with it for so long. And I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I was just thinking like, how did it get to this?
Well, you see, it's bad because the ants have a communist society. That's what Nerd Russell tells me.
No, it's bad because women. It's bad because women.
That's true. That's true. There is a woman in it. I hadn't thought.
No. There's 2 women, Jolly, so it's twice as bad.
There's what? Oh my god, unwatchable.
No.
While we have a medical student in chat, I'm really curious about this because, especially as someone who defends midichlorians, the Acolyte has some really interesting takes on midichlorians and the fact that 2 people can have like what do they call it? Actually, 2 identical sets of symbionts.
Yeah, symbionts are the exact same.
Yeah, I have thoughts on this because, and I will say, like, genetics is something I'm a little bit less, like, 100% solid in. But it's, to my understanding, you can have monozygotic twins and dizygotic twins. And monozygotic twins come from the same egg. They're essentially share the same genetic makeup, but and it's how you get identical twins. And then you have dizygotic twins, which come from 2 different eggs, but they are still in the same uterus. And so I don't know, like the scientific approach to twins has always been something I find kind of silly. Like it always paints twins as like the same person. So technically, yes, monozygotic twins, I believe, share 100% of their DNA, but it is not. It's not being like, oh, they're the same person. I'm like, no.
They have different mitochondrial DNA, I think, and
yes,
even between identical twins. And I guess like that was the interesting thing, right? Because like one of the theories behind the evolution of mitochondria in cells is obviously that they were eventually, originally symbiotic life forms with whatever the original early cell was, and then just became one organism over time as the kind of barriers between them just sort of dissolved. And I always think like midichlorians must be something similar, right? Because they live in all living cells, and they presumably have their own sort of leftover midichlorian-ish DNA, RNA, whatever they have.
Yeah, I was kind of explaining this. So mitochondrial DNA is inherited through maternal inheritance patterns. So you only get mitochondria, because sperm do have mitochondria, but 100% of the mitochondria come from the egg cell. And so the egg cell is much bigger than the sperm cell, obviously. The sperm cell essentially is mitochondria in what's called like the motor of the sperm, but it doesn't get incorporated into it. So if you have, like everyone has mitochondrial DNA, but when you have mitochondrial DNA diseases or defects or whatever, it is 100% from the mother. And so my take on the midichlorians is like, I always thought it was like mitochondria because, you know, there's the, it's the, what's it called? It's the theory that like bacteria entered into eukaryotic organisms millions of years ago and they become codependent, which, you know, I think is fully true. But my take on the mitochondria or on the midichlorians in Star Wars is that it's similar, but then I'm also like, well, I appreciate that in a way because it'd be like, oh yeah, all the power of the Force comes from women, and I'm like, I think that might cause some Star Wars fans to like lose their minds.
You can only inherit the Force from your mother. It's like, oh
yeah, that's the thing. Is like I think I said that to a friend of mine a while ago, and he was like, oh no. I was like, yeah.
Quick, we need to delete the section of the stream before Kathleen Kennedy
hears.
Oh
no, God.
No. So yeah, sorry for the biology lecture, but
no, I find it really interesting. It's really nice to have a conversation like this. Yeah, like genuinely. I guess there's an interesting thing there, which is like if it is like mitochondria and has different, like, you know, different people's midichlorians have slightly different midichlorian-ish DNA, or whatever. Yeah. Does that mean some people's midichlorians are just like more potent than others? Like it's not even like a count thing of like I have more of them. It's like, no, my midichlorians are just better at accessing the Force than yours. They've got more special source.
It's actually one thing I think Star Wars, I think I actually like about the midichlorians is that, you know, they say like the M count or whatever in recent projects. And I just think that, you know, it's interesting to say that like one would have a higher concentration of this whatever in, you know, in midichlorians, like genetics or Force power or whatever you want to call it. Because I think, you know, that's akin to real life. And like I said, that's why I have no problem with the midichlorians. It's like, I think it's really cool to have a biological cause for the Force. So
yeah. I do have questions about why it's so difficult to clone Force sensitives if it is just a biological cell. But like that's not a criticism of the idea of midichlorians as a concept. That's a criticism of like, you know, you need to find a way of writing a barrier to just shitting out powerful Force beings without having to just say, you know, just trust me, bro, you can't do it.
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation the other day with my friend who she's a PhD student, but she's a poli-sci PhD student. And we were having a conversation about why I think midichlorians are good versus why she thinks midichlorians are bad. And we were talking about like, yeah, like it kind of like demystifies the Force. And I'm like, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
I literally don't care.
That was one of your points, wasn't it, Shiva? Like people going, oh, it demystifies it. It's like, okay, and
yeah,
I'm like, who cares?
Well, I'd also argue that like there's still so much mysticism like surrounding the Force that like even if you give away one piece of the mystery, like that doesn't mean that it's suddenly just like that's such a non-argument. There's still so much mystery around the Force. It's still a mystical thing.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think like demystifying I think having a biological reason for the Force, perfectly fine. I have no problems with it. And people who do are, you know, cope and seethe, or whatever they say.
I do wonder, like going back to the Virgin thing as well, like why they needed a metal detector to find it.
I don't know.
No, actually, Jolly,
censor, right?
Jolly, you see, they're actually trying to detect the woke microchips in their bodies.
Oh, that's true. You know, all birds are drones. That's why the pandemic was faked, so they had to replace the batteries and all the birds.
The reason they didn't find the witch fortress in those 7 weeks is because there was a 5G tower in the way.
Oh no, I had a conversation with someone at a college the other day, trying to because I work with COVID-19. I'm a research assistant, and they asked me the other day, so do you think it was made in a lab? Do you think it's caused by like the microchips or something? And I just said, okay, I have to leave now. I don't feel safe here.
Could be worse. I was walking around, this is when I was doing my master's degree, I was walking around my university library and I overheard some engineers saying that they didn't believe in evolution. And I was like, oh, okay. Well,
yeah, that's
depressing.
That's a pretty common engineered L.
Engineers are a strange breed. I love them, but strange. Yeah. But it was, I guess just because we have a limited amount of time, we want to get people in to talk about the Acolyte. So I think, unless you've got anything else you'd like to ask about the Acolyte, we might have to call it on this one, unfortunately, because I've been really fun having you on. It's been really cool to have a medical student to talk to. That's been amazing.
Yeah.
If you have any more questions about how knowing about biology makes you woke, continue to, just hit me up sometime. However, that's totally fine. Thank you for having me on. I've had a really good time discussing this with people who actually like know Star Wars and aren't stupid. So thank you for that.
Well, it was our pleasure. It's been a really lovely conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.
I did see someone in chat. I wanted to address their comment.
Okay.
Where was it? We'll just have to disagree. Midichlorians did not exist during the OT. That's the definition of retconning, changing the history of a story that's already been told. So no one's denying that it's a retcon. I'm just wondering why that's inherently an issue, I guess.
I mean, I guess I would deny it's a retcon insofar as like the actual story of the OT doesn't change because midichlorians are a thing, right? Like you're recontextualizing stuff, sure, but Obi-Wan did not give Luke an exhaustive breakdown of what the Force was. He told Luke what he needed to know in the moment.
I mean, retcon just is short for retroactive continuity. So I think in the most like literal sense, it's like you are retroactively changing the continuity. It is indeed a retcon.
But I guess that's my point. It's like, are they changing it, or are they just filling a gap that existed? Because, like, I guess I want to draw a distinction between, if Obi-Wan had been like, it is categorically not biological, and then they've gone back and like, no, it is just these midichlorian cells, versus like Obi-Wan is like vague about what the Force is because he's teaching Luke the bare necessities, and then the later story goes like, well, actually, just to add to this, there's this component we didn't talk about before, but it's always been there. You just didn't know about it. I just view those as slightly different things.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I guess you could call it a retcon if you want to. I just feel like it doesn't. It would only be a retcon in the most technical sense. It doesn't have any kind of meaningful repercussion.
Yeah, like I take your point. Like it's not a retcon if it's not directly contradicting anything that's actually established. But I mean, it's kind of there's kind of a gray area there where it's like they didn't establish it as a thing, but also it's kind of implied that it's not a biological. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if I'd say that. I don't think it's implied any one way or the other.
They say it flows through all living things, and it's directly tied to living things.
Right. So it's connected to life. It's connected to biology.
It is organic in some sense, or at least it is a kind of life force.
Well, until C-3PO starts using the Force to pick up rocks and throw them at Darth Vader.
Until that droid blows up.
Skippy the Jedi droid.
Yeah. And then he comes back in Mando.
Did I get any more? Oh, I got one from Cinnamon Bob that I don't think I noticed. I caught yet, but
hello.
For $2 Canadian. I really enjoyed our chats. Thanks, guys. Thank you for coming on, Cinnamon Bob.
See, these discussion streams unironically restore my faith in fandoms because you have so many nice people coming on and just being pleasant, and it's such a difference from like Twitter. So
we already got it. We already went over that one. Okay, I wasn't sure if we'd gone over that one from Wisdom. With all that, we got Stephen LeGresley coming on next. He's been a regular chatter for a while. He says he's going to be directly talking about the Charlie Barnett thing. So, Stephen, you're on.
How do I set up my? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
How do, I was going to say my avatar is not showing up for some reason, but
you need to turn if you've got a webcam, you need to turn off the webcam.
Yeah, you'd have to turn that off. Yeah,
automatically turns on.
There we go.
There it is. Perfect.
So basically, I wanted to address the Charlie Barnett thing because a lot of people that are talking about this, they don't understand how like that kind of situation works in an interview. Basically, when these actors are doing press junkets like this, they can have like 10 to 15 interviews a day, and they have with them a kind of, the term I use for it is like a public relations wrangler or handler. My cousin actually does that job for Disney, no less. But so what they'll do is they're there to kind of like sort of manage it. So if an actor, like actors will frequently before an interview, they'll go over to them and be like, I need an anecdote. I need, something I can bring up in the interview, something that, if they're nervous that they won't have enough to talk about, they won't have like something like that. So it would actually be that public relations person who would go, talk about, you can reference, Luke blowing up the Death Star and that kind of thing. So if a mistake is made, it's it's usually either that person, messed up, or it could just be they told the actor the right anecdote, but after doing like 9 interviews, they're like, they're human beings. They forget stuff like that because people have this.
And there's also the thing, right, of like people assume that like because actors act that they're therefore like comfortable with like public speaking or being interviewed, and it's like those are very different things. And like lots of actors get very nervous in front of an interview camera in a way that they just don't on a film set. So Charlie Barnett might literally have just been like, internally panicking, being like, must find anecdote, must come across relatable, must make the show look good, and then like just flubbed his line several times. That's totally fine. I mean, again, like that's what she was saying, right? Like people are just holding these actors to like an insanely, like not just high standard, but like irrelevant standard that's got nothing to do with the quality of the media.
Well, exactly. Like, I mean, and if you look at like the example I would draw is, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and both Matt Smith and Michelle Gomez knew nothing about Doctor Who. Michelle Gomez actively avoided learning anything about it because she didn't want it to taint her performance. She wanted to give the performance she wanted to give, so she actively avoided, learning about the lore. And they're two of the most beloved they created two of the most beloved characters in the history of the show. So it's like it has no effect on their performance, which is what we should care about at the end of the day. It's like
right. I mean, that's what she was saying with the comparing Charlie Barnett, say, to Rupert Friend doing the Grand Inquisitor, right? These are very different contexts, and that like an actor should only do the research that they need to do to play the role they're playing as well as they can. So with Rupert Friend, like he should have done the research into how the Rebels character was portrayed, because he's the same character in the same continuity, so he needs to be consistent with the performance that came before. Right, he should have probably talked to. I mean, first of all, he should have just recast Jason.
He should have
Isaacs.
just cast Jason Isaacs. He wanted to do it. He looks more like the Grand Inquisitor in live action than Rupert Friend does.
His voice, yeah,
and it's his voice.
But like, regardless, Rupert Friend should have been told to go and look at that, or done it on his own regard. Sometimes the directors will just tell them not to watch media, which I always find a bit strange. But the kind of counter to that is also like you don't want an actor to learn stuff about their character that will impact their performance if they know it ahead of time in a way that would make it look unnatural. Like there's a really famous, not famous, but there's a really useful anecdote from like Charles Dance on Game of Thrones, where like he purposely did not read the books any further than he was at in his personal character arc, because he didn't want Tywin, quote unquote, to have foreknowledge and for that to like infect his performance. And so he went to a fan convention, and someone was like, "Oh, it's such a shame we're only gonna get you for like one more season before your character dies." And I was like, "Oh, come on, man! Like, fuck you!" Like,
spoilers.
Yeah. So it's always strange to me when they're like, Charlie Barnett should have read everything there was to know about Star. Like he should have trawled Wikipedia, should have played all the games. Like, man's busy. He's got a life.
Well, I mean, I guess people would argue that like because Luke being the one who blew up the Death Star is like very basic knowledge that like we're not asking them to know everything there is to know about Star Wars. We're just asking him to have like a very casual understanding of it. And I'm like,
but why does he need that?
But that's again, it's like, but it's still irrelevant. Like he doesn't actually need to know. He may have never seen any of the movies. He may know nothing about them, but it doesn't matter, because what he needs to know is how to play the character of Yord, who has been made up for this show. He needs to know what the Jedi are. He needs to know what the Sith are, and he needs to know what the Jedi and the Sith believe about each other. And like that's pretty much it.
And that's actually when an actor gets a role on a show or that they're given what's called a character breakdown, which is basically either just bullet points or like short paragraphs going over, here's what we need you to make sure you portray or make sure that, and the rest is up to you. And included in that is 2 columns called suggested reading and required reading. They will tell them in their character breakdowns, before you show up for set, you need to read these books, you need to watch this, you need to that. And then they'll do suggested, which is, basically what it says. It's not required, you don't need it, but we think it might help you. So at the end of the day, that's more on the director than the actor. Like if the director doesn't tell the actor, because, like I said, these actors work like they try to work consistently. Who knows how many roles they're getting in a year? They're kind of trusting the director to kind of guide them through it, to be like, you need to read this, you need to know this, and directors can be very
especially
bad
if you're
for
like
that.
a less well-known actor, right? Like if you're a big name actor who's got a lot of money, you can afford to just like be like, oh, I'll take one role a year and I'll devote 2 months to learning the skill, how to ride a horse, how to fight with a sword to do this role. And everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. But like if you're a younger actor and you're not being paid very much, you jump between like potentially up to like 10 roles a year if you're doing movies. And like you're learning lines for one thing while you're doing another thing, and like you're on the phone doing auditions whilst you're in a role, and like you just don't have the time to spend doing hundreds of hours of research for this one role that ultimately is a very small part of your life.
And especially when it's a role like this where they're also going to be learning fight choreography, possibly doing some kind of wire work and stunts that they have to train for, they have to prepare for. It's like it's so much so much goes into it that people don't like. This is my field, I work in this industry, and people don't understand how much. They just see the movie or see the TV show and they don't understand the insane amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to get it there. Like these actors
Viggo Mortensen, the actor for Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, recently like wrote an article about this where he's like, so many, most media critics are just media illiterate in terms of like the actual ins and outs of how media gets made. They don't seem to understand any of the craft at all, and it's kind of worrying. Which I think I would agree with him on that. I like the idea that like the actor for Soul, I can't even remember his name. It's really annoying. Lee Jung-jae. I can't. Anyway, he learned English obviously for the role, but I like the idea that Yord's actor learned Basilese. Just like spent months being like, I must get these squeaks right, like pitch perfect.
Oh yeah.
Well, like, and that's sorry, Sheed, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've never been an actor, so I don't know exactly like how much time they have on hand, but I don't imagine it's a lot because schedules are very tight when it comes to filming. Like you got to get shit done. You're always on the move. You just don't have that much time to do all the research you need to do. Like if he had time enough to even watch the 6 Star Wars movies, assuming he'd never seen them before, like I'd consider that a miracle,
Especially because a lot of modern media, like the script changes during filming, right? So like the lines you learned a day ago may be changed for tomorrow's shoot. So you have to learn like 3 pages of dialogue in like a day, and like I don't understand the context. Like the writer's written something about the Hutt Wars. I have no idea what that is. I don't have time to learn it. I just need to get the lines done.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And then do like an interview, and someone will like, he doesn't know the Hutt Wars. What a loser.
Oh, it changes. It can change hour to hour. It can literally be like we're making a script change. They check with the studio. It comes back and they're like, "Here's the new pages," and they're just like, "Let's go."
I remember I was reading a Making of Empire Strikes Back book as research for my Size Matters Not video, because I do shit like that because I'm a fucking nerd. And there was like a really fascinating read that I had where basically the guy who wrote this book had attached a microphone to Irvin Kershner, the director of the film. And so basically we got like a day by day or like an hour by hour, minute by minute, like accounting of an entire day of filming. It was the day that we're filming the Han getting frozen in carbonite scene, and there was just hours that he, like, on that same day, he spent in Harrison Ford's trailer just like revising lines and coming up with all sorts of new stuff that, like, trying to get the shots exactly right, trying to do this, that, and the other, like changing things on a dime because they wanted it to be perfect. So like Carrie Fisher came in and she was like, "Oh, I don't know this. There were script changes," and like, yeah, like go over that with Harrison. I don't have time to talk to you right now. Like it just moves very fast, and you only have a certain amount of time in the day to do stuff, and you got to get everything
and
exactly right.
Sometimes the director will just throw out everything on the shoot. Like you'll be standing in front of the camera. He's like, "I don't think this works. Improvise something." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay."
The Hutt Wars.
Yes. I want a croissant, and they're like, "Yep, that works." Han says he wants a croissant. Put it in.
Perfect.
And funny enough, that's also how a lot of continuity errors occur on set as well. With things is everything's moving so fast. It's like I've been a continuity supervisor myself. before, and you go up to the first AD and you're like, point out this looks wrong, and they're like, I'm dealing with 100 things at the moment, talk to me, and they just never get around to actually like listening to you, and then continuity errors occur because time is money. We're focused on getting the shot. Does it look great?
One of the junior DOPs walks in the background and Christian Bale goes nuts. That's
oh god, yeah. And that's the thing, is like a lot of people go on about like, oh, Disney Star Wars so bad. It's like, I don't want to be an apologist, but the studio, their concern is like money. Give me something marketable. Give me something I can put out there that's going to get people buying it, paying for it, that. They don't really focus. Like when studios give notes back, when they give feedback back, it's related to either that or like, oh, this might put us into an R rating. This might put us into an X rating. This might affect that, which will affect our box. At the end of the day, their focus is the money. They trust the director and the producer to like handle issues of continuity. So this is like the issues in the Acolyte with stuff like that is more of a Leslie Headland problem than a Disney problem, because that's her job. Her job is to be, but like I said, they get ignored.
Well, I mean, I'd say it's a mix, right? Because the thing is, like, when a studio becomes so money obsessed, they're just like, we need this to boost the quarterly profits review for this year, for 2 months' time or whatever. And they start handing directors notes like, we need 3 fight scenes per episode. Our focus testing says that'll keep people engaged. Or, I mean, there's a really famous one I remember telling Shiv about, which is during the filming of that spy film on Amazon with Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, which was not a good movie. The original opening was like a 6-minute car drive through the mountains. That was a homage to an earlier spy movie in the 80s that the director wanted to do. And Amazon basically looked at that and was like, this is beautiful, this is gorgeous. Our data says that people are turning off it in 2 seconds and just switching over to something else. So you need to start with a fight scene, start with an explosion. And he was like, but that damages the character work. And we're like, yeah, but we don't care though. We need people to keep clicking. And like, doing that is always going to make the art worse. Like when I understand that studios obviously need to turn a profit at least in the capitalist marketplace they do. But when that becomes the only concern, it's like we need to just pump out get as much money out of this for as small a cost as we can, and as quickly as we can, and with every project, you run into big problems. Like that is why we are having these issues in Disney Star Wars, and also because it then bleeds into the kinds of creatives they hire, because they'll just hire creatives who will just go along with that, who just tend not to be very good at their jobs.
I'm not well versed on what all jobs exist in terms of go into making a movie or a show. Like, I'm assuming there are people whose entire job it is to be like, we have this budget and we need to divert those to this and this.
Yeah,
right?
It's the producer.
Produce. Okay, well, because the thing is, like, one of the main complaints that we've had about Disney Star Wars is that they have such bloated budgets that then don't really get devoted to anything, because our theory is that they film multiple different scenes and entire storylines that never make it to the final cut because they test screen them to hell and back, and they go with the ones that did the best with the focus groups, right? So like I'd love it if there was someone whose job it was to be like, we need to just like actually use this budget, this massive budget that we have concisely, right? And like, make every penny count, because then like, even if the writing is shit, like they could actually have like really good looking shows, and wouldn't that be neat?
Well, so the thing there, and this is speaking as someone who's worked as a producer in theatre, not film, but as an artistic producer, you need producers who either have a background in art or who used to be artists themselves, because otherwise, like, what you get is the studio execs just fill them with studio bureaucrats whose only concern is the profit margins of the studio and not how the money can be best used to utilize the director's vision. Like, a producer's job is supposed to be to balance the concerns of the studio and the director, right? So the director goes, I want $100 million to create this multi-bus crash explosion on a highway. And the producer goes, okay, but does that actually further the story you want to tell, or do you just want that because it's cool? Because that's going to eat up a significant chunk of the budget, and the studio execs will be very unhappy. And then he goes, oh yeah, actually I didn't need that. Right? Like, oh yeah, that's the producer's job. Instead of being like, how can I force the director to make this scene 80% cheaper looking, to make the CEO's bonus 2% larger. That's not what producers are supposed to be there for, but it does seem to be what they're doing now in large media companies.
Well, it's even hard for producers because like a lot of times they get hit with the information after the fact. Like I've been on film sets where we've spent like 6 to 8 hours setting up a rig, setting up a thing, only for the DP to go, now I changed my mind. And then it's like that was a lot of time and money wasted. And then the producer will get they get the information at the end of the day. At the end of the day, they'll get a thing saying, you know, oh, this is how much was spent today. And then so it's like they're getting it after the fact. So then they're turning around and going, you guys are spending a lot, but they can't do anything about the money that's already been like wasted.
Oh,
like,
absolutely. That's what leads to like certain cultures. Like there's a really interesting I can't remember what it's called, like that hot wings thing where they give like celebrities hot wings and then interview them. There's one with Vince Vaughn where they're like, why don't we get like those kind of 2000 style like cheap comedies, like summer comedies? Why don't we get those anymore? And Vince Vaughn's like, because we have this like very strange culture in media right now where like the you know the top level studio execs are all business guys from Harvard. They've never done art in their lives. They don't care about art either. If you're the rung just underneath that, like if you're a producer on these movies and you get the budget reports at the end of the day or whatever, your natural response is going to be like, and you're having to explain those decisions to a guy whose first impulse, if the money goes bad, is to fire you. It creates a culture of extreme conservatism, where the producers basically spend all their time figuring out how to cover their ass rather than how to make things better for the studio or for the film media. They want to be able to be like, if the film goes wrong, they want like a checklist. They can go like, well, I followed the formula. I followed the CEO approved checklist and formula. Therefore, you can't fire me, right? And that just creates these situations where like you just get media that is just by the numbers and terrible and unimaginative and bombs.
So it's like Chernobyl, but with lower stakes.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, essentially they like there's a famous story Kevin Smith was telling because he was in the fourth Die Hard movie about a time when he showed up on set and they were having like script issues. They were trying to figure out the script for his scene and it took them a day and a half to get that. And at the end he was like, how much time and money have we wasted? And the director was like, millions. We wasted millions on this.
Yeah,
and he's
and
like,
that's why you need to have like again, like this is why we advocate for a culture of like, you know, have a proper pre-production process, like actually plan things out. We shouldn't have these situations where the script changes every day. Like you should have a situation where like, you know, a month before the project starts, the script is basically settled, where the directors know what they're doing, where everyone kind of is on the same page, instead of like rushing out 4 shows every year and like just pumping them out so no one knows what's going on. And that you know, they go from pre-production to production to post-production all in the space of like 8 months. Is obviously going to lead to just huge fuck ups, and make the whole thing amateurish and crap. You need to plan out art properly, like anything else.
yeah, absolutely. It's and that's what's so hard on these people is a lot of times like with actors like Charlie Barnett, with that whole remembering stuff. It's like I said, like it's crammed into so much. Like they because of that thing, we want to get this out there. Okay, you need to train, you need to do all this. Like there are a lot of actors, I've witnessed this. There's a lot of actors who practice their lines in between days with shooting at either in their trailers, which are called bangers, or like if they're staying at a hotel, that the actors actually meet together and they're like, let's go over this stuff. Let's go. Like it's rushed to the point where they're rehearsing together for the next day. It's like that should be done. Like you work stage, Jolly. Like that should be that kind of rehearsing should be done, you know, way back.
Yeah, and having worked as an actor in theatre and films, like I've been in those situations where like the directors changed the script like the night before, and like me and 5 other cast members were like in the middle of our dinner, and we were like just quickly like reading the, you know, trying to rehearse the new scene while sitting at a table, and my mouth is full of like pasta and mince, being like, just we need to learn the scene quickly, get on with it, like and yeah, obviously the scene then turns out not very well, and it makes the actors really grumpy, and it just creates a bad atmosphere, and that can tank a production really quickly because you just don't trust your director at that point, and you stop listening to their directions. It's kind of bad when the captain of the ship can't be trusted, is my point. And that is why, in conclusion, Charlie Barnett must be killed with hammers.
I feel like I missed a few. I don't know where we got there.
No, I'm siding with the mob. We must kill Charlie Barnett for unspecified reasons.
No, you're right. Actually, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I rescind that part of my video.
You should apologize.
Well, that was great. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. It frustrated me so much seeing that, like, on Twitter, like, Shiv, I don't know if you've seen my tweets or that, but this has been just driving, especially with that whole the House of Dragon actor yesterday, with that whole thing where they were ragging on him because he's never read the books. And it's like, first off, is there
who's this, sorry?
Yesterday, there was a news story on Twitter about an actor from House of the Dragon who was getting slammed because he had never read a Game of Thrones book. And it's like, well, number one, like, how does that apply to House of the Dragon, really? Number two...
Do they know how many of the Game of Thrones actors hadn't read the books? Like, just admittedly did not read them?
So this is why I've been, like, fuming for days. I've been, like, waiting for the stream because I've been fuming because it drives... Because, like I said, I work in this industry, and it drives me so crazy to see this stuff and to see these poor actors getting such unreasonable flack that it's... Like, people need to watch behind the scenes documentaries more and stuff like that to, become literate in.
Well, you see, if you do that, you might come to the conclusion that George Lucas didn't always know what he was doing, and that's sacrilege. You're not allowed to say that. So.
Okay, who's Harry Collette? Oh, Jacaerys. Okay.
Yeah, he's Jace. He's Jace.
So that he's being slammed for having not read the books.
Yeah,
that's so weird to me. That seems so random.
He also got slammed for, like, just being pretty, like, because most of his scenes are, like, nothing to do with him. Obviously, like, he just stands in the background, like, making a slightly pouty face. Yeah, and everyone was like, "Oh, he just mews all the time." And he's like, "Man, I'm doing the best I can. Like, I haven't been given.
He's not been given anything to do. Like, I don't know what you want from him."
Yeah, I think he's been pretty good, and, like, I enjoy him on screen. Oh well. Anyway.
That's dumb. They're slamming him because he's pretty. Yeah, it's not like there's an entire house called Lannister where pretty is their thing.
I mean, I too get slammed for being pretty. It's a cross I have to bear.
It's the hat.
It's the hat. Yeah, it's the monocle.
It makes you look like a Reddit atheist.
Babes love the monocle. Guys love the hat. I get all the demographics between them.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate. Thank you for letting me come on and vent. It was very therapeutic.
Well, yeah. Glad to have you on.
Awesome. Talk to you guys later.
Have a good one. I think I was gonna say was, like, the one time I'll ever criticize anything in Game of Thrones where, like, a character is too pretty, quote unquote, is the fact that Peter Dinklage is way too good looking because Tyrion's supposed to be, like, grotesquely ugly.
Yeah. Tyrion's supposed to be, like, missing part of his nose and, like, have
like mismatched eyes, like, in terms of color. Yeah. But anyway, Luke Lockhart, you are on. Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. Things are up. The sky is up. Birds are up. Clouds are up.
Gas prices
are up.
Oh man, I made that joke way too many times for a long time.
Yeah, I did too.
I
had to try train myself not to use them.
No, Sheefy called my joke stale. We have to get rid of him immediately.
Yeah, so I wanted to, if we're talking about the Acolyte, which it's not great, but I had a potential solution to two problems in the Acolyte, but it might just be completely wrong. So one thing that's confusing, like you guys went over this a little bit earlier, is the idea of them being the same person. And then one thing, just like from a story standpoint, is the fact that it seems like they don't really have any incentive, or they just like switch on a dime, both May and Osha. Is it possible that because the Force is kind of like a dyad, like a dark and light, that each of them are connected to the Force, to where if one of them is acting in like accordance with the light side, then the other person has to act in accordance with the dark side? So like if Osha does something good, then May is automatically going to be doing something evil because she's kind of possessing the dark in a way.
I feel like if you were to introduce that as a concept, then that completely negates like character agency, because at that point it's like May's evil because she kind of just has to be, because Osha is good.
Because the Force mandated it, like she had no choice. I mean, this is a problem we have with the way the Force has been characterized from Phantom Menace onwards. It's just like the Force now is just like this thing that like forces people to behave in certain ways, and there's no free will, and that's not great. The other thing there is like the idea of the dark side being like this equal and opposite to the light side, rather than a perversion of the natural order.
Yeah, we hate that.
I really dislike. Yeah, we're not big fans of that as an idea. So I'm sure Disney, had they heard you say this 8 months ago, would have written that into the script, because it is absolutely in line with what Disney canon tends to say about the Force. But that hits both of our triggers in terms of what we don't like about the Force.
And do you think that's worse than the idea of both characters being extremely inconsistent? Like the fact that May was gonna turn herself in and then just like tried to attack, and then she was going to kill Naka, and then she decided to turn herself in out of nowhere. I don't understand why any of these characters do anything.
I don't know how to quantify like if one is better or worse, right? Because it's like they're both just. I think those are just both bad ideas.
Because that's the things like we're exchanging characterization damage for world building damage, and so I don't think like character and world building are intrinsically more important than one another. It really comes down to just like the level of like
world building damage. World building damage that, as a consequence, takes two of our main our two main characters and makes them non-characters. So it's like, you haven't damaged them now as characters, but like you have made them not characters. Them. You've deleted them as characters. They're just planks of wood. They're just like blobs of clay that the Force can move around.
I think in this instance, the swap is much worse for the world building than if it's just a characterization issue. Like that's effectively like going, oh, I got a splinter in my leg. I'll just pull a grenade on it. What?
Oh no! We have tweezers. No.
And someone's like, well, your leg isn't hurting anymore because you don't have one. It's like, yeah, I guess you're right.
And then Plagueis at the end I thought was interesting. At the final episode, I was like, oh yeah, sure, they have to bring in Plagueis somehow, because Chimere, that's obviously going to be, I thought it was pretty obvious it was going to be his master, but then Plagueis sees that he's training somebody, so Plagueis has to kill Chimere and the apprentice. I thought that they were going towards a scene where Plagueis is going to show up, and Plagueis, it has like a cool fight scene, which they've had cool fight scenes in the show. So they show a fight scene where Plagueis absolutely demolishes those two. I thought that would be a better ending than what we got.
You mean like he just shows up randomly and just, because I mean, I don't want it to be like anticlimactic, like I don't want him to just show up and the main character and the main villain just instantly die like it's nothing, and then oops, that's the show. I'd rather they build that up in some way. Or at the very least, you have like hints of like there's someone out there who's more powerful than Chimere, who has some stake in the story that's happening, and like Osha's getting little hints that there's more to the Sith than just Chimere, and then maybe he just shows up and absolutely fucking destroys Chimere. And suddenly, instead of thinking that she's like about to become a Sith and train with him, now she has to run for her fucking life. And like, that's the end of the season. Like at that point, I think you could actually do something with season 2.
I disagree. I think what we should have done is like, that ending scene where Chimere and Osha are holding hands and staring into the sunset. We should have angled the camera where like you have them just in frame, and then like Plagueis just like walks up behind them and like holds one of their hands, and he goes, I'm just gonna scooch on in here.
We stand up, Polly King.
Yeah, and then the whole thing just ends. Like, Chimere and Osha just look at him like, what the hell? And then like the whole thing just ends.
No, he just comes up and like puts his arms around them. And he's like, hey guys! He's like wearing sunglasses.
He's wearing like Kanye West style like visor sunglasses. Like he's got like a gold chain on,
shirt on.
He's just slurring his words, carrying a cocktail.
I thought of it randomly, but do you think maybe Plagueis doesn't kill Chimere because he hates the rule of 2? I mean, it's not like canon yet that he doesn't really like the rule of 2 and he just wants to live forever.
Matter. It doesn't matter. The issue he should have with Chimere is not that he broke the rule of 2. It's that like he's exposing them. He needs to go for that reason.
like that could address him being okay with Chimera taking Osha as an apprentice, but not him exposing the Sith, because that's just a no fuck. That's just a no. That's just nuh-uh. No, you can't do that.
Nuh-uh. The fuck you mean?
Like, unless you're trying to tell me that Plagueis believed it is time, like timeline wise, it's finally like okay to unveil the Sith. But then I'd be like, why did he wait 100 years then? If he believes now is the time to do that.
Bullshit. Like the Sith are back, and the guys are like, okay, well, we're gonna kill you then, because like you're not in power and you don't have an army, and the Jedi are still very much the dominant force here. And it's like, shit, maybe I miscalculated this one.
Yeah, like,
should have probably waited for the whole Camino conspiracy thing, eh?
Chimera doesn't seem to believe, or doesn't seem to be in any position of power. So, like, I don't know how Plagueis could possibly think the Sith are ready, or that they've taken their places in the political arena to
I'll
start
go further.
like, manipulating events.
Given that Chimera is a former Jedi, you cannot put him into any position of political power without him, very severely being risked of a discovery. Because like the second he runs into a high-ranking Jedi, they'll be like, "Hey, weren't you an Estra's pupil who mysteriously died?"
Yeah, so he's kind of tainted goods, is what you're getting at. Like just
like
off
both
the bat, like Plagueis can't even use him.
Yeah, I'd argue the same thing for May as well. Like both Chimera and May and Osha are all severely tainted goods. Like they're too well known to the Jedi. You can't have them be apprentices. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, like when the show was coming out, I thought what we were going to have was maybe she was deeply wronged by the Jedi in some way, but like in a way that the Jedi in question wouldn't recognize her if they saw her as an adult. So then it's like you can have her running around killing Jedi, but they have no way of connecting it to her as like an identity. Or you could even just take it a step further and say she has absolutely no connection to the Jedi, and she is killing them because she wants to be a Sith, and that's literally it.
I thought it was going to be like the Rafa sisters, where they're like, our parents were killed when the Jedi were chasing Zero the Hutt, and then Luminara's just like, oh, well, that's just how it goes, and pisses off.
Shit happens.
Do you guys think that Palpatine should have killed Dooku for like saying, "Oh, the Senate is controlled by Darth Sidious"?
No, I mean,
no, because like we joked about that, but like we actually think it's completely in line with what both Dooku and Palpatine would want. Like him telling Obi-Wan that makes total sense.
Yeah, I think he only told Obi-Wan that because he'd okayed it with Palpatine. Like Palpatine wanted that information out there.
They're trying to sow dissent between the Jedi and the Senate first and foremost, but also like among their own ranks, because now you have Jedi debating endlessly about like if Dooku's telling the truth and if he's right, and there'd be a lot of Jedi who would naturally think, well, if Dooku is waging war against the Republic because the Republic is being somehow influenced by a Sith Lord, then maybe we should be siding with him. So there'd be dissent between the Jedi ranks as well as between the Jedi and the Senate. Like that's absolutely something you want Obi-Wan telling the Jedi about.
Yeah. One other thing. So the way you address just like Star Wars, I think is interesting, because I don't know if I don't know how you see Star Wars as something that's like good, because like I see you as like a Star Wars fan, but from what I've seen, it seems like you only like the OT and Andor and Revenge of the Sith. So that doesn't feel like much of like, how are you a fan of something to where like you only like 25%?
Are we no true Scotsmen saying the idea of fans?
Well, I guess it's just worth saying that like the difference is there are things that I like that I don't consider good. For instance, I actually don't think Revenge of the Sith is good. But I like it. I like all three of the prequels, and I like the Clone Wars, even though I don't think it's good. I like Rebels, even though it's a very mixed bag. I like a lot of the books, and I like a lot of comics. I even like The Force Awakens. I mean, that's one of the three sequels that I actually enjoy watching, even if I don't think it's good. Solo and Rogue One, I like those. So, I mean, the thing is, like, I'm a fan insofar as I like the vast majority of Star Wars. But I think only a little bit of it is actually good. Like maybe 5-10%.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So that's where I was misunderstanding you. So the difference between good and I enjoy this, because like I enjoy, like as you said, I enjoy Force Awakens. I enjoy all these different things. But when you say good, you're talking about like the artistic,
like
value.
well made. Is this
Yeah.
well crafted? Is the narrative built up properly? Does the plot, follow basic cause and effect? Does the character work make sense? Are there themes, and are the themes like consistently and well conveyed in the media? Like all these things. I believe they can be measured, which I know isn't a completely popular opinion, but that's just where I am.
Yeah, I agree with that. It comes down to like I kind of referenced this earlier, how you define objectivity versus subjectivity, and people just don't seem to understand either of those terms on either side of the argument, which is kind of frustrating. What we've always advocated for is like unless the art piece in question is specifically only aimed at this one person, I don't care about what any one individual's subjective experience of a film is. That doesn't tell me anything about the film's quality, right? A film, a piece of media its quality is judged by like how well its themes were built up, executed, paid off, and communicated to the audience it was intending to communicate with. And that is ultimately something that's down to things like internal consistency of characterization of the world, whether cause and effect is followed, like whether it's intelligible, all these sorts of things that go into it. With the OT, I mean, again, like, I love the OT. The OT's got its own problems. I remember, I pointed out to Sheev that like a good portion of Empire Strikes Back doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, there's a good chunk where like things kind of happen that don't really work. They don't follow logically in terms of how the rebels got to Bespin and how the Empire followed them, and why it took them, and like why they waited for them on Bespin rather than like going
intercepting them in space.
Like intercepting them in space and saving months of time. Stuff like that.
There's a lot. That being said, Empire Strikes Back overall is still well constructed. Like the majority of the plot is follows well. The characterization is always, I'd say, is always good. I don't think there's any poor characterization in Empire. Logic is mostly followed. The presentation of the things by like cinematography and musical scoring and color palettes and all the sort of things that go into that are all done really well and all help reinforce the themes. And so it's overall like a very good piece of media, but it has its flaws, as basically everything does. But then like you look at something like Acolyte, where like the entire plot is contrivances or insane leaps of logic that don't make any sense. Characters don't operate. The only thing that characters have
absolutely stupid.
They just doing whatever the writer needs them to do in the moment.
Never acting within their own established motivations, even once.
Because Sheev said this in his video, right? Because the Acolyte wants to tell the story. In fact, Sheev, I'll just let you do this, right? But like the whole how it wanted to tell a story about a certain topic and failed.
Right, yeah, like episode 7 particularly, in terms of like how it portrays the Jedi versus how it portrays the witches and what it's trying to say about the Jedi Order as an institution, and how it's trying to like pick at these themes of like the Jedi have overstepped and sometimes they do more harm than good, and they're a deeply flawed religion and like an organization that has too much power, and that can sometimes be a bad thing even if their intentions are noble, like ultimately. But the problem is that it failed to convey those themes because of the fact that the plot it actually gave us told us nothing of the sort. Like it showed us the Jedi actively doing everything they could to do the right thing no matter what and to save lives. It's like it wants that theme, but it doesn't get to have it because it just failed to communicate it properly.
Yeah, we made the joke in another stream about like, if Kylo Ren had like decapitated Han Solo, pissed on the corpse and pushed him off a cliff, and then turned around to camera and gone, the theme is that family is important. Like that would have been absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
And you guys,
everyone clowned on TLJ for, right? With like, it's not about destroying what you hate; it's about saving what you love. Whilst the Empire
Rose
destroys everything she loves because she interfered with someone destroying what he hated.
Literally, as they're kissing, a big explosion happening behind them that was shot by one of the AT-AT walkers from the First Order at the Rebel base.
Obliterating it, yeah.
It's just great.
Did you guys not enjoy The Mandalorian, or because I very much enjoyed Mandalorian, at least the first 2 seasons. I've heard you guys talk about how Mandalorian is something that is not good. I can see where it's not good, like from a like critique standpoint. But did you guys not enjoy it at all?
I enjoyed lots of parts of seasons 1 and 2.
I enjoy half of season 1.
I enjoy the Bill
The
Burr
rest-
episode of season 2.
Yeah, and actually, to be fair, in season 2, I enjoy Bill Burr's performance when he's talking about Operation Cinder, even though like that scene and Operation Cinder itself make absolutely zero sense. But his performance is fucking incredible in that scene, and I feel like Bill Burr was shortchanged by being given that to work with.
I'd also even say that scene in a vacuum, if you ignore the machine that scans to see if you have a face, like that on its own, if you were to separate it from everything else, is an actual like well-made scene.
Yeah.
It's well acted, it's well written, everything like that. And then the firefight happens, and it's back to shit, and you're like, oh.
I maybe would say that the Empire official he's talking to, the officer, is like way over the top evil. Like he's basically just evil McWeaselton. Like that's just his character.
I mean, you know, I don't know. You take what you can get with the Mandalorian.
Yeah, but like then you get things like Grogu defeating the Praetorian Guard and like catching explosions and like whatever the hell Gideon was trying to do, and Beskar and the way it works and like the way the New Republic behave, and just it's all bad. Actually, here we go. The Pershing episode I mostly like. I enjoyed watching the Pershing.
I thought the Pershing episode was mostly well written, aside from a lot of world building issues.
I enjoyed watching him eat the glowing ice creams and talking about the tallest mountain in Coruscant. I genuinely think that was a really nice bit of scenery.
Like unironically,
Pershing himself was great.
And like that scene as a microcosm, like did a pretty good job foreshadowing the events to come in the episode of like them both them looking at this mountain and talking about how like this mountain peak, which is the only thing left of the Mount Umate, I think is what it's called. And he goes, "Can I touch it?" And she says, "Go for it." And there's nothing wrong with touching the mountain peak. Like you're not harming anyone by doing it. But he tries to do it, and then the little robot droid's like, "No, back, nah." And it's like, she tricked him, ha ha ha. But it's like when you understand that, like ultimately she's manipulating him to her own ends, to try to get him in trouble.
Do something bad under the guise of having him do something good.
Yeah, it's like that's a nice little bit of foreshadowing, and I think it works pretty well.
One thing I think this is a good distinction between like enjoyed and like good technically or from like an art standpoint, because I went back and rewatched all the movies, and I was so surprised how little I enjoyed the things that are generally considered good. Like I enjoyed like bad media more than I enjoyed good media. Like the OT, I can recognize it as a very good series, but when I went through each movie, I don't know why. It just didn't hit me. Like I didn't enjoy it. I felt bored during, and kind of similar thing with like Andor. Like I can realize that it is a good show, but when I was watching, I was actually doing breakdowns on Andor for a little bit, which was kind of fun. And it just, I was bored, but I don't think that that in any way affects the quality of the show. But I do think boredom can signify something about the show that might not be. Do you think like boredom has any semblance on the actual like quality on whether something is like good?
Depends on the context. So like if someone just says to me, "Oh, I found it boring," that tells me nothing. That's useless. As criticism of a show goes, that's worthless. If, however, you say like I tried to make this film for like the under 18 demographic, and all of them found it really boring, then like
I'd be like, yeah, you probably did something wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also like you can find things boring for a like objective reason, right? Like I think I even said in my Phantom Menace video that I found the chase, like them trying to get past the blockade when they're escaping Naboo, I found that entire sequence boring, and I think the reason why is because the way it was directed and the way it was written was so unengaging and so just like easy. It's like and badly acted on top of that. So they're just like, oh no, the shield generator's out. What are we to do?
It feels like a pantomime. And then, it feels weightless and stakeless.
Yeah, and like R2 just kind of slowly wheels down, presses a few buttons, and then it's like, shield generator's back up, and then they leave, and that's it. And you're like, that was really boring. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, I'd also suggest that maybe, and I do not mean this as a criticism at all, you might just be trying to get something different out of your media, right? Like if you go into, especially like pop media, right, and you just go, I just want to be entertained. Like I just want to see cool explosions and flashing lights and like hit all those nostalgia buttons, and like I just want to turn my brain off and just have a fun time, popcorn, nom nom nom. That's totally fine. That is a totally legitimate way to engage with that kind of media. it's just that we want different things, right? Like I want art to be art, and what I mean by art is like something that actually is trying to communicate something to me. Like I want it to be telling me something, and I wanted it to be telling me something well. Transformers 1 is not telling me jack. It's fun as hell to watch though. Like, you know, I love Van Helsing. Like, Van Helsing does try and tell you something, but like very badly. And it's just a schlocky fun fest. Like I love the Mummy movies for exactly the same reason. I'm not going into those films expecting to be like deeply emotionally moved or to learn a great lesson that makes a, you know, a philosophically nuanced point about the nature of humanity or whatever. You know, so yeah, so if you're not interested in like that kind of aspect of art, then yeah, that's fine. That's totally cool. I presume you'll be getting that scratching that itch elsewhere, and that's totally fine. I just don't like people then turning around to me on media and being like, "Oh, Andor was a bad TV series because it didn't have enough boom boom sticks." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Do you think that movies and TV have to go for that artistic vision, or like if they're going for just like strict turn your mind off, this is entertainment, do you think they have to like say that before that this is like, oh, this is not art, but this will entertain you?
No, because I think I think the very nature of a TV series, because like a TV series is a story, right? Like it might be being done mostly for entertainment purposes, but it's basically built off the back of the idea that it's a story. We're trying to tell you a sequence of events, and so you know, even if you're like, I don't want to tell you anything deeply nuanced, I just want to do like like children's stories like this, right? Like Wall-E is like this, Ratatouille is like this. Like this, the messages are not complicated. They're just like, you should treat people nicely. You know, everyone's cool. As long as you're doing
like,
that well.
Not everyone can cook, but a good cook can come from anywhere.
Yeah, or like, you know, what makes you special is inside you, like, and you know, or like what makes you super is what you can bring to, you know, very simple things. You can do that while being extremely entertaining. In fact, I'd actually argue that you have to be entertaining to the audience you're trying to be communicating to, because otherwise they're going to lose interest in what you're saying. So like having a good time is not unrelated to just being internally consistent and cause and effect, right? Because like even if you just came for the explosions, you'll enjoy the explosions more if you felt like they fit well into the story and meant and like flowed well and didn't just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, so you still want to work to make it like, you know, consistent and logically, like cause and effect is followed logically.
Yeah, like if you want popcorn, that's cool, but I'm sure you'll enjoy the popcorn more if I give it a little bit of salt or a little bit of toffee or like whatever. Like, you know, like give it some flavoring. And that's what like being consistent and being coherent and fitting well within the narrative does. It just makes those, you know, the obviously like emotional beats just matter more or feel more vibrant. And so I don't know why anyone would argue that we shouldn't have good storytelling, because it's not an either or, right? Like Transformers could be really fun and full of explosions and also tell a competent story. So I don't understand why we're like, oh, it doesn't have to tell a good story. Like, no, it should. It should have to tell like a coherent story. It doesn't have to be high art.
Well, then couldn't you say that?
Couldn't
you say that for something like Andor then? Like something, yeah, you can tell a really good story, but you can also make explosions and have it be entertaining like a Transformers kind of movie. Why can't you just have both?
Well, because it's not trying to be, because it is entertaining. It's just not. It's like, you know, there are different ways to be entertained, right? Like it's not trying to entertain the explosion and popcorn crowd. That's not what it's for. Well, that's a bit like going to like a Puccini opera.
Like that?
Well, it could have been like that. Well, hang on, but it could have been like that, and that would have been fine if it was that was what they're going for. But it doesn't have to be entertaining in that specific way, because if that's not the crowd it's trying to entertain, right? Like if I go to a Puccini opera and I start complaining about how there aren't any lightsaber fights on stage, I've missed the point, right? Like that's just not like the Puccini opera is not trying to be entertaining for people who want lightsaber fights. It's trying to be entertaining for people who want to enjoy the music and the performances behind that music. That can be entertaining to a lot of people, and it is entertaining to a lot of people. I'm very entertained by Andor. It hits a lot of my entertainment buttons.
Yeah. So do you think a show is bad if or a movie is bad if their sole if they just want to do like Transformers did, that straight entertainment, but they don't have that quality of story that you have from Andor? Like you said, it will supplement it. But like I said, the Transformers raw entertainment kind of value will also supplement something that just has just a good story, but some people might find boring, like I did. Just not.
I mean, I'd be happy enough to say that the first Transformers movie is, if not good, then it's like fine, you know? Like, I don't think it's going to reach any of the heights of like an actual great masterpiece or anything like that. But like, because it has a plot that follows pretty logically and like it's not really that complicated or trying to do anything too extraneous, it tells a decent enough story that like I wouldn't consider it bad, even if it is, for all intents and purposes, like popcorn entertainment, you know?
Yeah, and also there's a difference here to be like, this is why we need to be really careful with terminology, right? Of like, I might even say it's a good movie in the sense like it is. If by good you just mean entertaining, if that's your standard of good for a movie, then yeah, it's a good movie. I would call it a bad piece of art though, because I think art is intrinsically something that is trying to communicate and tell you something. So if it's not doing that, it's failed as an art piece. So it might be like a great piece of entertainment, but a terrible artwork.
Yeah, that's fair. I one other thing I thought was interesting. I wanted to quickly go over was the idea of the Force and how like.
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off because unfortunately we are 7 minutes overtime for you.
And sorry about that. All right. Yeah. I can head out. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate this. Maybe next time we can talk about the Force and how some characters are overpowered.
Okay, yeah. Sometime it's just I don't want to, because we have one last person in the queue. We don't want to keep them waiting.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah. Thanks for picking our brain.
Oh no, my brain.
He picked it.
Give it back.
All right. We're almost done with the stream because we only have one person left, but there were a couple super chats that I did miss. So I want to go ahead and make sure I don't. There was one from Sam a while ago that I forgot to go over before we let Mr. Lockhart on, so I'm going to get that done first. From Sam Montgomery for £5. Thank you for the super chat. Sheev, changed the stream's name to Sheev Streams Restored My Faith in Humanity and have the thumbnail be Jolly's imp with the smile filter. I don't even know how I'd do that because you got the stupid fucking arms crossed in front of it.
I can give you one without my arms in front of my face.
I'll just put a big toothy smile on top of the black void that is the bottom of your face. And then one from Steven for $5 Canadian. Thanks so much for letting me come on and vent. You should always tip your therapist.
I don't want you to think of me as a therapist. You know, I want you to think of me as a mental patient who killed your therapist before you got here.
Are you going to make that joke every time you hear the word therapist?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Just as long as we're on the same page.
And one consistent.
One final one from It's Just AV for $5. I don't know what that is, but $5. What's with the Star Wars fans' attitude that we should just be happy with Darth Plagueis, that Darth Plagueis even appeared? It was like this with Scorch and the Bad Batch too. Yeah, it was. Alternatively, people were mad that Scorch died like unceremoniously, and I'm like, I don't know what you expected. Honestly, he wasn't anything in the show, and he's been in it since season 1, and he hasn't done anything. I don't know why you expected him to have any kind of like actual climactic death, you know?
Yeah, it's a strange one.
But yeah, to address the actual point, it's like, yeah, we shouldn't just be grateful for it just because they decided to put Darth Plagueis in the show. Like there needs to actually be something to it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty then. Take a sip of water.
He's drinking the water.
And we have one last guest. So, Variety, you are on. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can hear.
Okay. Yeah, I was waiting for. I was driving for some time, and I'm at the gym now, but it was just poor planning on my part. But I just wanted to just throw a quick hypothetical. Just to point out that I do agree with what you say. Videos, I actually really appreciate the work you guys have been doing. But I wanted to ask, so have you considered the possibility, I'm late to this, I don't know if it's been mentioned, but with the matter of Osha's hair, have you considered that's actually her natural hair and not a styling? The difference between the two of them is the length.
It's like it's just
thing is, it doesn't.
Style.
Well, the thing is, that it doesn't matter. Like, because if that's her natural hair, it's still the fact that like that was a hairstyle that she had whilst when when they were sisters, when they were children, and they were forced to always be the same, and Osha hated that and wanted to be her own person. That was one of the things that they were forced to have in common, was that hairstyle. And then obviously, like, it's associated therefore with a girl who tried to murder her and murdered their entire family, and who she hated so much it forced her to leave the order. I feel like if your hair constantly reminds you of the person you hate most in the world, you would change it.
I can see that because I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm on the casual end. So I had seen, like, for example, Ezra's hair being blue. You have the child between, I forget the names, but the Jedi, the one who trained Ezra in Rebels, as well as his significant other, their son, Kanan, his son, having green hair. So I was thinking of the possibility that, like, maybe their hair is just naturally like that. I understand that going through the trouble of twisting and dyeing, obviously, you wouldn't want to do that, because going through that painstaking process would just remind you of the one who caused you so much trauma. But because, like, for example, if the twins, say, I'm not making this a race thing or anything, but if the twins were both white Caucasians, one had long hair, one had short, it's just they have the same kind of hair, right? But I can understand what you mean about the length being the exact same as when she was a child.
Well, it's the style as well, right? Because, like, even if that's her natural hair, like, if my twin tried to murder me, killed my entire family, and I'd already, like, hated the fact that we always were forced to look the same and be the same and be treated as the same person, and, like, that was my natural hairstyle just reminded me of that person, I would just, like, cut my hair or dye my hair or just drastically do something to change my appearance to make sure I didn't look in the mirror and feel trauma.
Okay. Yeah, sorry if there's an echo. I'm in the splash room right now.
Is there an echo?
That's fine. Good on you for being at the gym. That's a healthy lifestyle.
But hold on.
Get on that treadmill. Do the incline steps. That's what I always say.
I know.
Good cardio workout. One of these days, I'm going to convince Sheev to do rowing machines.
Yeah, definitely. But I do appreciate the work you guys have done, because I'm pretty casual, so only real exposure to Star Wars YouTube, Star Wars theory, that kind of thing. But he really alienated me with his Andor takes. So having someone who actually
can screws, and that's bad.
Yeah, I know. But I do appreciate you guys.
Well,
Thanks,
I'm really glad that you're having a good time with us, and hopefully we can keep up that high standard.
Yeah, I know, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, of course, Sheev is going to go broke because he's woke, so he'll eventually have to turn into a grifter. That's just how it goes. But until then,
I mean, the right wing pipeline to the views never fails. So I'm not going to fault you for it.
Star Wars Theory is doing excellently, and in no way looks like a complete tool who's hemorrhaging viewers.
I mean, I'm an example of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just because people are sick of this shit, right? I just want to talk about Star Wars like a sane person. I don't want to scream about everything.
Someone in the chat said Star Wars Theory called me a DEI. Okay.
A drunk exclusionary imp. There you go.
That's just you.
What, drunken? How am I exclusionary? I'm the most inclusive person you'll ever meet.
Yeah, but you're also pretentious, which alienates people who are intimidated by your accent.
Wait, that's true. I should switch to French. That'll be much less. Oh wait, hang on.
You should just start speaking German.
I should just start yelling in Russian.
Was there anything else, Variety, that you wanted to go over?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, do you have a channel, Jolly? Because I tried looking it up.
I do. I have a channel, and I am making a video. Sorry, this is not my exasperation is not with you. I'm just everyone's been really lovely and patient, and I really want to thank everyone for bearing with me. But I am working on videos. I do have a channel. You can find it. I mean, Chief links it in most of the videos that I'm on with him on his channel.
Right.
So you can subscribe and wait for my first videos. You can subscribe and wait for my first video to drop. It will hopefully be very soon. I am working on it, but just I have a very busy job, and it's been a really hectic, quite difficult year. So I am.
And it's under your user, right? Jolly Chat.
Yeah. If you just go,
it's linked down
/
below.
Jolly Chap.
All right. Yeah, and I just want one last thing. Sorry. I definitely wouldn't consider myself an acolyte apologist or anything, but I can appreciate their effort, at least for what they tried to say, even if they failed. And I will say that there are some things I appreciate. Soul as a character, like as a guy, I think he's really cool because he's like the first, like, I wouldn't say like all the other Jedis they've introduced aren't real Jedis, but like, your atypical Obi-Wan Kenobi type, like, fond of the Order, straight
much more
man.
like Qui-Gon. Which is, I think what the actor said, right? Is like he wants to do it in the mold of Qui-Gon.
He said he was completely inspired by Qui-Gon, and that was like all the that's what he took most from.
Which actually, if anything, makes that ending even sadder to me because like absolutely butchered him at the end there.
I can, and again, like I'm saying, I can appreciate the tragedy of it. Like, the best Jedi I've had portrayed so far, at least in terms of his morals and everything. He's being scapegoated for this, but again, the execution just wasn't there. That's why I say, like, I can see what they go for.
Is that still a topical thing to say, or am I a boomer?
I don't know. What did you say?
I didn't miss that. Yeah.
I said it ain't it, Chief. Never mind. It's the
Oh
moment.
my God, Sheev is old. You've missed the moment. That joke falls flat. You're bad. Get rid of him.
Yeah, but I definitely I like Soul as a character. I think he's cool, and it is a shame what they did to him. And I remember you mentioned some aspects like the senators being against the Jedi. Like, that's a really interesting concept. They just don't build on.
Yeah, I like Jackie. I like what they were trying to do with Jackie, at least initially, and it went nowhere. But
I like Daphne Kane.
It's a thing that I've noticed with these shows. It's like, I'm not saying I want more bad episodes, but I feel like length for them to at least explain things would definitely help. Like more episodes, like an episode dedicated to the Senate, things like that, because these are actually interesting things. That
Maybe just don't waste 2 episodes dedicated to flashbacks telling me the same fucking events.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, for example, Mando season 3, I remember because I'm pretty casual, so I'm not like, not saying you guys are hypercritical, but I've definitely let more things slide.
I am hypercritical.
But like, they had that whole, literally a filler episode about the rogue droids, and I'm like, how can you have a filler episode in an 8-episode season? It just doesn't make sense logically. But yeah, like dedicating 2 episodes to the same flashback. I mean, I'd be fine with that if it was a 13-episode season. But,
well, you see, we need half of our Book of Boba Fett series to be about Mando, not Boba Fett, because time management is good.
2 whole episodes, like one of them was about Luke,
and then it assassinated Luke as well. Like, why are we doing this? Oh boy.
Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah,
it's our pleasure.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not in the middle of gymming next time, so I can actually use my mic and everything. But yeah,
that's right. Go get
really
games,
appreciate
get swole.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Have a good one, man. Okay.
You need to put this image on screen so I can put all this arm business to bed.
I will. Give me a second. Get the freaking
people in the chat don't believe me that these are arms. They think it's a mustache or like a snout or something. And I'm like, oh, there you go. Look, there I am sitting in a chair, holding a drink. I have arms
people
and
think
legs.
It's a mustache. It's totally valid. I also thought it was a mustache.
It's just, I'm not changing my PFP. You're gonna have to get used to it. I like the PFP, but like, yes, I have arms, not a mustache, and I have dangly feet things that are not connected to my body, but are somehow supporting my weight.
It's like a me.
And my eyes glow.
I love the way these are just your little devil tail just kind of like wraps around.
Yeah,
there. That's neat.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on my artwork. Hopefully it looks good.
I don't, so
I mean, to be fair, I did build you that Among Us cover, which was good.
It looks really good, and I'm going to be using it to hell and back for like the next fucking 5 years.
Man, I need to start charging you for these covers.
Well, maybe going forward. I also love how for the last like hour, our chat has just been overrun by people making woke jokes, like woke puns. It's been fun to look at.
Now they think I just shaved for that one picture, and that is like a Movember thing.
It is just a mustache.
You know what? For November, I'm going to give my PFP a giant handlebar mustache. Just going to call it a Movember PFP.
What color will the mustache be?
Ginger.
Beautiful.
I mean, it can't be black, or you just wouldn't see it on the front of my face.
My opinions are fact. Sheev talks. That's true.
Yeah,
so don't ever challenge me
absolutely.
again. Yeah.
I am the final arbiter of facts. That is my job within the hierarchy of universal powers.
It's true. Well,
and the fact finder of the endless.
I don't have any more super chats to go over, and that was our last guest. I closed out the link to the queue a little while ago because I figured we'd cap it up at around 3 hours, and here we are.
At 3:20, yeah.
So, as always, thank you very much, Jolly, for coming on. And as we mentioned earlier, you can find a link to his channel below. He will eventually upload to it, so it will be a worthwhile thing to subscribe to.
I'd say it was a pleasure, but you do have me locked in your basement and only release me through streams, so
Yeah.
I don't really have a choice.
You could still at least take pleasure in it. Come on now.
Can I come out for Christmas this year? Meet the family?
You've overstepped. No Christmas.
Oh, like shoots you and like comes out being like, "Hello, family. We can eat all the potato peelings we want."
Well, anyway. Sorry,
yes.
I wasn't thoroughly unimpressed by your joke, and that's why I made that
That's-
noise.
that-
I was just
that's
reading the
fine.
chat.
It's back to the basement for me, isn't it? It's like back to
It
the video
is.
mines.
We're just gonna like cattle prod you.
All right. Thank you very much, chat, for joining us. This will hopefully conclude us having to ever talk about the Acolyte ever again. Because
I'm
oh
never
my
touching
god,
the show again. I've done my videos. I've said my
until
piece.
season 2.
Oh,
Until
do you
the
want to?
inevitable season 2?
Before we go, do you want to promote the House of the Dragon stream that we're gonna do?
Yes.
Probably like
Well, I don't even know.
next. I mean, a week from today. Do you think that would work?
Yeah, that'll do. A Tuesday is usually good for me. So yeah, let's say a week today then.
Tuesday.
We shall be doing a retrospective on House of the Dragon season 2 and why we don't think it was very good.
Yeah.
So come along to hear us whinge about dragons and say that there's too many women and talk about how lovely Jace's hair is.
The way he mewed, just right.
Yeah, come and watch me simp for Daemon Targaryen.
Daemon,
he's French. now.
Daemon.
Daemon Targaryen. But yes, anyway, yes, that'll be happening next week. So come along and tune into that.
Hot D.
Love some Hot D.
Hell yeah. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'm going to close this out now. You can't stop me. I'm moving my mouse over. I'm clicking end stream. Goodbye.